Please. I'm going to have him do both.
Okay. We're going to work you.
We're going to double work you.
Teach you to come.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before you sit down, Mr. Lloyd is going to be so kind to grace us with his presence and give us our invocation. We're double working your father tonight, so thank you so kindly, sir.
Thank you, Lord. Thank you for the governments that you've given to us so we can iron out our problems. But we need to look at you. We need to know you and call upon your name to straighten out the things, the difficulties that we have with each other. But thank you for the recognition of my sons and helping the city. Thank you for blessing our wonderful town and blessing this wonderful country that we live in. And I hope that all here seek the wisdom that He gives to each of us, and knowing how to solve problems and love each other. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. If you'll be seated, and if you all come up with Jed, you have the... Yes, we'll all come up with you.
Just sit there.
You just said, turn my phone off.
Obstacle course.
Call your chief, not Jed. I call you.
Well, we have a couple awards tonight. So first, I'd like Officer Micah Lloyd and Dispatcher Mooring come down. On April 7th of this year, Dispatcher Morin was monitoring the inmates from the communications center when she noticed suspicious activity in one of our cells. The inmate had removed his shirt, tore a hole in it, and then hung it over the short brick wall before disappearing from view. Although Dispatcher Morin couldn't fully see the subject, she recognized that something wasn't right. She radioed to the officers in the field, and Reserve Officer Lloyd was the first to arrive in the facility. When Reserve Officer Lloyd entered the jail cell, he found the subject had used his shirt as a makeshift noose and was unresponsive. He was able to remove the noose from around the subject's neck and place him into a recovery position. Reserve Officer Lloyd was able to ensure the subject was still breathing and monitored, having a hard time seeing this, his vitals until additional officers and paramedics arrived on scene. Due to both of their actions, they saved this gentleman's life and should be commended for their hard work and dedication. So, thank you. This is Dispatcher Morin's second life-saving award.
Wow.
And Officer Lloyd's first. So he'll have to buy a new bar to add another one to it. So. Nathan, where's Garibay? On the TC?
Yeah.
Can we put this one off? He's on the traffic accident right now.
Okay. Will he come back in, or you want to put it for another week?
If he doesn't make it back, we'll do it next week.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all. Thank you, officers, for being here. Okay, we are going to have public comment, and we're going to move one item. The last item from Kerncog, we will move up after number 3, or before number 3. Thank you. All right, so public comment. Persons wishing to address the council on matters that are within the council's jurisdiction and do not already appear on the agenda may do so at this time. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the City Council may not take action on any item that does not appear on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes. The public comment section of the agenda is limited to a total of 1 hour. Each speaker is asked to provide his or her name. Public comment, please. Come forward. Thank you.
Hi there. I'm going to go ahead and start off by answering a pretty common question I get out here before I introduce myself, and that is I am not a distinguished high school student, despite the fact that I look young. My name is Christopher Livingston, and I'm the managing editor of the Daily Independent, and I am just here to introduce myself to the community. I recently had been named to the Post about almost a month ago, and I decided to get myself out of the office, come over to council chambers, and introduce myself to council. And to the community members who are here or who might be hearing of this. And just act of goodwill real quick. No complaints or anything, at least not yet, hopefully. And again, just want to give you guys a face to the newspaper and to say hi. I hope you guys are having a great day, because I am. And I hope you guys have a great meeting. Thank you.
Thank you for coming and introducing yourself. I think we all knew you, but now we know you in a different capacity. So welcome and thank you for your hard work and continued. Thank you. Sir.
Good evening, Dave Matthews. My address is on file. First of all, I'd like to let you know that we have a distinguished visitor in our midst tonight. The blonde lady in the pink that I came in with happens to be Mrs. Mark Nichols from Melbourne, Florida, a.k.a. Diane Matthews, a.k.a. my daughter. And I would just like to note that the only reason she's from Florida now is because the aerospace company that her husband works for got tired of doing business with the state of California. So they've been back there for 4 years. Just an aside note so that maybe we can keep track of how many other businesses are joining them. Last month, sometime probably, you all received an email from me inquiring as to whether or not you monitored the email address that was listed for you on the city's webpage. Pretty good response. I got 80%. One councilman probably didn't, I don't know. Maybe he's out of town or something. But I forgive him. But I'll talk to him later anyway. So the reason I was doing that is because I wanted to see if those websites were actually being monitored regularly, because that is part of the openness that you try to instill in the public. And there are, despite many other opinions that social media has taken over, there are still some of us out there that don't use it and don't want to use it, and the only way we have to get in contact with you is maybe through the email addresses. And the other thing is, in conjunction with that, is that years ago, I don't know how many years ago, there used to be a voicemail phone number listed for each council member. I don't see that anymore, and I don't know why. So I haven't had a chance to check with our city clerk or anybody else to find out why we still don't have that access also. And I guess the last thing I'd like to say is that I was perusing the internet a while back, looking at some of the, quote, wisdom sayings, and one that I found was called an old Chinese proverb, which generally stated that a wise man makes his own decisions. An ignorant man, and that doesn't mean dumb, that means he's lacking knowledge, will go with public opinion. So those are some words you might think about as you're making some of your decisions. And I thank you.
Right. Thank you, Dave. And welcome. We know you can not possibly keep up that long tradition that Dave has by joining us at every meeting and all of our meetings and always speaking, but you are more than welcome. Thank you for coming. Next, please.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council members. I'm Jerry Harridan, the Director of Leadership Ridgecrest. I'm here tonight to give you a little bit of an overview of our program. We have had our first year of Leadership Ridgecrest, which is a program developed after Bakersfield's Leadership Bakersfield's program. We have 10 students that will be graduating this next Friday. We're having a gala June 15th here at Kerr-McGee. This is to honor our 10 students that have worked all year long in a cohort. They have learned about all the aspects of the variety of things you need to know about community involvement, school systems, hospital, healthcare, government, and all aspects to be future community leaders. What we're trying to do with our program is to develop community leaders for our community. So I just come here to tell you a little bit about it, encourage you to support our program. The city has supported it, the Chamber of Commerce, the county. This was developed by innovation from Mick Gleason and our mayor, Peggy Breeden. Were very instrumental in getting this going, and I have worked with them closely over the last year to make this a reality. We're very proud of the 10 students. Other communities of our size have maybe half that amount of support. Our champions that have run each day of the program, 1 day a month for the last 9 months, come from the community. They design their day and teach the students, and the students will tell you they have learned so much and have been exposed to a group of people that they have networked with, and that they can bring back what they've learned from this program to the community, to their businesses, and to our society as a whole. So I really encourage you. We still have seats available. I've had a lot of people have come out and reserved tables and seats. If you have any more questions, Chamber of Commerce can give you more details. And I do have some invitations still left. If anybody wants one, I can give that out if that's appropriate at this setting. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your support. Everyone on the council has had touched us in some way. We had the city gave a presentation, and so I thank you for all your support, and we look to have a great year coming. Applications are out, and we're looking for students for the coming 2018-19 year. So thank you.
Jerry, wait just 1 minute, if you would, please. I'd like to see if I can explain just one more. Kevin McCarthy, Vince Fong are graduates of Leadership Bakersfield. Goes to show that's how they started. And we have some amazing, was 8 years old the youngest? Except she was not monitoring it, not participating.
What the students are required to do is a project, and we have 10 students, so we divided them into 2 groups, and they came up with 2 projects. You might have heard about Stigma-Free IWV. That was a mental health focused program. And then we had a Work Ready program for youth that went for 5 sessions, and that's where the mayor is talking about the individual. We had the youngest person that came to that was 8 years old. I think, is that correct, what you were talking about, Mayor?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
and I want to
sorry,
thank
didn't mean
you
to take the
because
thunder
this
away.
couldn't have been done
Excuse
without
me?
your dedication and hard work. You had a lot of supporters, no doubt. You made it happen.
Thank you very
you.
much. And it was a team. I had a lot of support. And most importantly, it was amazing. The president of Saracoso College, the superintendent of Sierra Sands, the mayor,
Amazing.
congressmen came to our government day. Gene Fuller was involved. I mean, we had a lot of people that came and took their time to educate and give information to our students. And, we started out, we said, we were, in hopes that we would get maybe 2 or 3 students, and we had 10. So Bakersfield has 30 for a population of 300,000. We're a population of 30,000, and we have 10. So that goes to show that there's an interest and a need, and everybody is on board to continue this next year. My champions are in place. We're going to add a little, I won't, let this out. This is a kind of surprise, but we're going to add to it and make it even better than it was this year. So,
Thank you.
There's a lot of passion out there for it. And I was just the ringleader and getting the people together and, providing the, support to them. So
You were just Jerry.
So anyway, thank you very much.
Anybody else? Okay.
We do have one. We do have one graduating employee, and that's Captain Ryan Maroney.
That's right. Where is, he's not here, is he? We will see him, though, on the 15th it is, right?
Yes.
15th, okay. Next, please.
Okay, I'm Warren Nelson. For many years, there has been a cry for peace in Jerusalem. The goal of some countries is to push Israel into the sea. A degrading attitude against Jews has become more common in certain countries in Europe. Now Hamas is shooting firebombs from Gaza into Israel, which starts fires in fields that contain valuable foods for Israel. This leaves a lack of peace. Since the election in the United States in 2016, a lot of fake news has been published by evil people who lie about real news. This leaves a lack of peace. Some people are seriously working toward the impeachment of President Trump because of a difference of opinion about how to run the government. This is true, even though there has been no action to show a need for impeachment. This leaves a tremendous lack of peace in our federal government. The MS-13 gangs are throughout the United States, but especially in Long Island, New York, and they are also in other places in the world. Their goal is to kill and to rape and to control. This leaves a lack of peace. The Me Too movement in the United States is against certain women. This leaves a lack of peace. The side effects of a casino include an increase in crime and in bankruptcy and prostitution and sex traffic and alcohol addiction and gambling addiction and marijuana addiction. What a horrible, horrible list. Why would anyone want to live in this way? This certainly leaves a lack of peace. Even the planning stage for a casino, there has been a lack of peace in Ridgecrest for about 2 years. Yes, we need peace again in Ridgecrest. Come on, tribe, let's do it.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members and all of you public officials. My name is O.C. Crawford. I come from Bakersfield. I was born and raised there. And I've been away for over 40-something years. And I've been back for 2 years. When I left, I didn't care much for Bakersfield in this area. But after going around the country for many years and leading an active life, I'm back here. This is my home. This is where I'm going to call it quits. It's going to be here in this vicinity. Anyway, last year, I found out that there's so many really good people in this area, in Bakersfield and in Kern County. And the more I looked into it, the more I found these people, they're not only good, but they are doing things like we just heard from the young lady. This is happening all over Kern County. Anyway, last year we wanted to do something. I'm with the True Love Tribe. This is just my family members, neighbors, and friends. We wanted to do something to show our appreciation for the people who make things work, who runs the city, you all. And I found out that mayors are incredible people with the support of their council members. I found out that some mayors have gone up to 10 events in one day, not in an election year, but right after they were elected, you know. And many other mayors that I've met, they are incredible people. We just lost 2 mayors, and they have an incredible legacy. And I think they just sort of set the standard for our community. The event last year was entitled an award banquet honoring those people who are selflessly serving the community, thereby promoting peace and unity. We had this ceremony, and we did award Mr. Hall. I found out who he was, what he was doing, so he was one of the recipients, but the others were just regular people. So some of the mayors who couldn't attend asked if I could make it an annual one because they thought it was a good idea and they would like to attend. So I'm here to leave this invitation, and we're going to be honoring all the mayors in Kern County, and we hope they all can show up. Last year, one of our themes was Bakersfield, the best city in America. This year, the theme will be Kern County, the best county in America. And we are the best county in America because we have unity. We're working together. We're loving and serving one another. This is what's needed in the world. And I feel that Kern County can be a leader for this nation with our unity. And each city is doing some incredible things and coming together like this. And it's being sponsored by just a retired veteran and his family and friends. We are sponsoring this because we love and we respect and we honor our public officials. And again, the more I find out about them, the more I love and respect them, and you all deserve to be honored by the people. And I'm letting everybody know. Before my idea about public officials, oh, well, they're getting paid to do it. That's their job. I don't think that way anymore. I appreciate what you all do, and I want to show that with what I'm doing. So thank you.
Thank you, sir, from all of us. Thank you.
Good evening, Council. I'm Mike Neal. I've got something to have handed out to you all, and I've got 6 here, so the city manager and attorney can have one or look at it. What you're going to be looking at is addressing what I think would be a really good idea to add to the city code, and this is something that actually puts a very definitive amount of allocation from the sales tax to the gas tax in Ridgecrest. Now, just hear me out here. I know there may be some instant objections, but I looked at the city code, and this is the tax is addressed in section 3.2112, and basically all it says is all proceeds of the tax levied and imposed under this article shall be paid into the general fund for use by the city of Ridgecrest. Now, at the bottom of the page there, in parentheses, it also says in section 3-2.109 basically that this section can be amended and any amendments automatically become part of the article provided that no such amendment shall operate so as to affect the rate of tax imposed by this article. So the ordinance imposing the tax and defining the tax can be amended. Now, as has been pointed out, we've taken a lot of money on the former Measure L, now Measure V tax, and there's some significant questions about where a lot of that money went. And on the part of the citizens, I'll just give examples. Only yesterday I ran into an old branch head of mine and sat down, and guess what? The first thing he asked me about was, when are they going to fix some more roads around Ridgecrest? And I've said this over and over. I hear this. It's pretty much all you hear. I mean, these days maybe about the casino, but it's not something about the casino. People want them, when are our roads going to get fixed? They like the ones that have been fixed, but there's a whole lot more that need to be fixed. And there's been a lot of discussion about how much has been put actually onto the road work, into the gas tax fund, or towards fixing roads, and what's been allocated towards the police department. So at this point in time, knowing what I know, having been what I think far too heavily involved, but involved nonetheless in committee meetings and getting the data and understanding the income of the city and the budget and so forth, I'm going to propose that this gets added to Section 3-2.112, and that's down in the middle of the page, in quotes. Proceeds of the tax shall be apportioned out of the general fund as follows. 65% of the total amount of the tax funds shall be deposited in the gas tax fund, and that's a fund that all road work is taken out of and paid for. In addition, this fund should only be assessed the lawfully determined amount of overhead as allowed by the current fiscal year's overhead rate study, which we had a lot of discussion about the overhead rates and what was being charged of what funds and so forth and so on. And I believe that especially if you consider this and decide to put this into place, and it doesn't have to be that particular amount, but that seems like about the right amount, I think you'll find a lot of citizens have a lot more confidence in what's being done with their tax money towards roads. I mean, having a Measure L committee or V committee now come up here and say, well, it's all being spent right. I've never seen any signs that really appeases people very much as far as feeling like the roads are getting enough spent on them. And if we do this, then it's going to be very definitive and allocated, and the Public Works Department people will know exactly what they're going to have to work with each year, and they won't have to be lobbying with the city manager about how much they can get. And the council will be showing that they are exhibiting a little bit of control on the use of the citizens' tax money on behalf of the citizens, and that's your job. So I ask that you give this serious consideration, and I'll be coming back to you to see what you think about it later on.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. I am Stan Rotora. Last April, a little over a year ago, the city formed an ad hoc committee to expedite our discussions with the Navy. It's been about 14 months. Most of us, when we think of the word expedite, we think of speeding something up. I worked for the Navy for almost 36, perhaps 37 years. I understand the difficulty of working with the Navy. On the other hand, I think we have been working with them for several years now. And it's time that we got together and made a decision. It seems to be that after more than a year of trying to get this thing expedited, the only conclusion that I can come to is that somebody is not negotiating in good faith. There's absolutely nothing that can't get done when it comes to this type of thing in over a year. So I would encourage you, if it's a city that's not acting in good faith, although I have a hard time believing that that is the case, that we change what we're doing as a city. Otherwise, if it's the Navy, we also have in our control a means to end this. This is just getting downright silly. We need to do something. Second item, I would like to second what Mr. Neal just said. I think it's high time that we actually looked at the Measure L and Measure V funds as something that is going to improve our roads. We need to have some type of repeatable year after year certainty on how much money is going to be spent on roads, and we need we need to know that the money is being spent on roads. It's not now. I'm sorry. I'd be glad to sit down with any of you and go through all the numbers with you. They all say that we're not spending the money on roads. We need to do that. So I would appreciate it if you would take Mr. Neal's recommendations seriously. And quite frankly, that would also allow us to eliminate the Measure L committee. They spend an awful lot of staff time, and it wouldn't be needed if we were to take the recommendation that Mr. Neal has just provided to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Is there any other public comment? Okay.
Thank you very much. My name is David Hoagland, born and raised in Ridgecrest, China Lake. Graduated from Burroughs in '71. My issue is on number 9 about the assessment for lighting and
Sir, we're going to discuss that when we come to that. May I ask that you hold off, because the items that are under public comment are items that are not on the agenda.
Okay. When are you going to discuss that?
When we get to number 9. Do you mind, sir?
No.
Okay, thank you very much. We're not trying to stifle comment. We just want it appropriate when we can hear it all together. Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Scott Miller. My address is on file. Give you an interesting heads up. On July 21st, you guys are going to be getting an invitation to something called Ridgecrest Shoutouts The Gathering, and it'll be going out to you folks here and the rest of Ridgecrest. It is a fundraiser for Penny Pool. We know that's a big deal in our town here. There's going to be free food, 2 local restaurants. We're buying food from those restaurants for 1,500 people. There'll be food available for purchase. There'll be food trucks available for purchase, not food trucks for purchase, but food from the food trucks available for purchase. Some of the cool, exciting things that you guys will get this invitation to is a battle of the bands. I think we decided going to have 10 local bands, a battle of the bands, a chili cook-off, and watermelon seed spitting contest, all kinds of fun things. Want to give you a heads up now, because when you get the invitation, you're like, what's this all about? So July 21st, I'd mark your calendars now. It will be over at the fairgrounds, and it's going to go from, I think we decided noon till 10 o'clock at night is the main part of it. There's going to be all kinds of fun and exciting things. More information to follow, but I don't like surprises, and I think you guys would like to know that ahead of time. Thank you, and you guys will all see that very soon. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Is there any other comment? Okay, seeing none, we're going to go on to the next item, which is council. I'm going to ask if we could, if council would mind, if we do our announcements after we have the item from KernCog. We will do the consent calendar and then KernCog, and then is it okay if we have council comments after KernCog's presentation? Does anybody mind? Okay, so the consent calendar. Proposed act, oh, sorry.
So when are we doing, I thought we were doing KernCog, right?
Well, we said after item number 3.
After 2.
After 2. And so this is the consent calendar. Okay, but before that is council announcements. So I wanted to hold our announcements so we could get our representatives here and have them speak and get them back to Bakersfield. Okay, this is the consent calendar. All items on the consent calendar are considered to be routine by city staff and will be approved in one motion if no member of the council or the public wishes to comment or ask questions. If comments or questions are desired, by anyone, that item may be removed from the consent calendar and be considered separately with public comment before action is taken. Do any members of the council wish to have an item pulled? I see none, so then a motion to approve, proposed action to approve. Pardon me? I asked, did anybody want anything approved, pulled?
Yeah, number 2.
You want item number 2 pulled? All right, well then we won't take any motion until after we deal with number 2.
Dave Matthews. I just couldn't resist because this is the only item on the consent calendar, and I noticed that further on down there are some that usually do fall under the consent calendar. So your guys are learning somewhere. Keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so there is no action to be taken on that except a motion to approve.
I move approval.
Go ahead.
Move approval of item 2.
Second.
Please vote.
Five ayes, motion carries.
All right, now Kerncog, please.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. It's always a great honor to be able to come before your city council out here in Ridgecrest. Your community is doing amazing things. I congratulate you on the new leadership program that you have. I am also a graduate of Leadership Bakersfield, and it's a really excellent program to begin to raise up folks within your community to be able to pass the torch on to. So that's exciting. This is a brief item before you today. It's a public hearing. If you recall, we were here last fall before you presenting a lot of the information that is in this document that's out for review. We have a public review for the current Council of Governments long and near-term federal transportation documents, and the review period for the draft 2018 Regional Transportation Plan Sustainable Community Strategy, the draft 2019 Federal Transportation Improvement Program, and corresponding draft air quality conformity analysis began back on May 18th and ends at 5 p.m. on July 12th, 2018. The draft Environmental Impact Report public review period for these documents began on May 25th, 2018 and ends at the same date as the RTP, the July 12th, 2018. All these documents are now available on KernCog. And if you go out at kerncog.org, if you go out to that website and click on the RTP, on the cover page of the RTP, you're going to see some of your petroglyph monuments out here in the middle of the main road. That's the cover of our regional transportation plan. So we're really excited about what you guys are doing out here. Again, this is action requested is that you guys open a public hearing at this time on the document.
Okay, we will do so. And is there comment on that? Does anybody have anything to say? I take it we do not.
Close it.
Would you like to talk to the public a little bit and just brief them a little bit about where we are and, if you could, what's going to happen?
Sure. Just so the public is aware, if you go out to www.kerncog.org and look at the Regional Transportation Plan and those other documents that are associated with it, this is the long-term plan for our region, that you'll have an opportunity to comment on that document, submit comments in writing up through July 12th of this year. And so if you get those to us, those comments in writing, we'll be able to consider those as the City of Ridgecrest representative, Mike Mower, will be then considering adoption of that regional transportation plan on August 16th. And so we appreciate your guys' input on that regional transportation plan.
Thank you. Councilman Maurer, you attend those meetings. Do you have anything you'd like to say on that?
I think you should close the public comment and we vote on it.
Okay. Well, since I hear no comments, I hear no public comments, we will close the public hearing and a motion to approve. Or accept. Accept.
Approve, we accept.
Second.
Please vote. 5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all for coming. We appreciate it.
Thanks for coming all the way out here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having us. Okay, so then we will now have council announcements. Is there any council announcements? Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Going along with KernCog, I think pretty much everybody in town is aware that construction has been going along on Route 14 up on the west end of the valley, called the Freeman Gulch Project, and they're having a ribbon cutting for that as they finish that section of the freeway. It's going to be Tuesday, June 12th at 9:30 a.m. Just as you turn off onto the highway there is where the ribbon cutting is going to be on the east side. There's some brochures right down here, invitations to attend if anybody wants to do that. Hopefully the council will be there to attend that ribbon cutting. Again, it's next Tuesday, June 12th at 9:30 a.m.
Okay. Eddie, any? Lindsay, Wallace?
I had one. I just wanted to recognize that this is the anniversary of D-Day from 1944, and just thankful for all of those men who lost their lives for a good cause. So, just
thank you.
Yeah.
Our thanks to all, for sure. Wallace? Okay, I wanted to announce that we were told that we could not distribute this until we'd had the approval and the distribution from the Kern County Grand Jury. But since it was on Facebook, it seems to me that the grand jury preempted us getting this, and I found this on Facebook. And so the grand jury addressed basically the operations of the city of Ridgecrest. They discussed the casino, and they discussed residency requirements to be an elected official in the city of Ridgecrest. And they basically said the comments that they thought we had done things right as far as the casino is. It's available. If you want to see it, I'm sure you can read it. And the other part of as far as the casino goes, it talks about what is yet still to come, and it talks about the residency requirements for someone to be elected to the city of Ridgecrest, and the only requirements are that your driver's license must state you live inside the city of Ridgecrest, and that is the criteria. So with the Kern County Grand Jury's answer and their discussion and their approval of many of the things that the city of Ridgecrest has done, I'm very proud of our city and our staff who made this all happen. So whether we have not heard from the grand jury that this is to be public, but when Facebook has it before the grand jury gives it to the city of Ridgecrest, I say thank you, Facebook, I guess, because it appears to be the presiding judge of the Kern County Superior Court and the foreperson. Responses are required within 90 days to them if you'd like to respond to the grand jury report. Okay, that's...
Madam Mayor, I'll ensure that gets posted on the city webpage as well as email copies to council.
Okay, thank you. I was really surprised to see it on Facebook. I'm thinking. Anyhow, that's my announcements. We have other things I'd like to ask for, but we'll do that under our normal comment time and agenda items. So then we will discuss discussion and direction regarding appointment of new members to various council committees, boards, and commissions. Sir?
Madam Mayor, members of City Council, we find ourselves in a position where we've had two of our Measure L committee members resign, as well as our Quad State representative. I'd like to first start with the Measure V committee appointments. In accordance to our ordinance, it states that those positions are appointed by the City Council. They don't state any more specifics. Also to a 4-year term. Jackie Walters was appointed by Jim Sanders. Her term was to expire in November of 2019. Then Steve Morgan was appointed by Lori Acton. The term was to expire February of 2020. I do believe initially when the committee was formed, council members selected which ones that they appointed. However, the ordinance leaves it open to City Council, so I would leave it up to City Council's choice on how you want to make these selections, but we do need to appoint 2 additional members. So I'd leave it up to Council to discuss and provide direction to staff.
What is the direction of Council? What would you like, since those of us who are on previous councils have already appointed? The only 2 that have not appointed anybody is Wallace and Lindsay. Do you think it's appropriate to let them? I do. Do you guys have anybody in mind, or are you interested
When I
in
first
doing
got
that?
on, I thought I was going to, because I thought it would be important. Just like with planning commission, you have your planning commissioner
Right.
that you talk with. I didn't have that necessarily with this committee, and since this is a
Because of
committee,
their
we always
4-year
get
terms.
yeah,
Yeah.
because we get lots of questions about Measure VL, how
Mhm.
money's being spent. I thought it would be good to have that opportunity. So.
The difference between planning commission and this committee is this committee, you make an appointment, it's good for 4 years. Planning commission only serves as a member of the council is on the term.
I don't know why it was set up. This,
I don't know why it was set up this way either. but
I didn't understand why it wouldn't be set up the same way as all the other committees. And I don't, is that
Maybe
like,
because
what
it's
it
an
called
oversight
for in the
committee.
ballot? Is that why it was set up that way? That it would not be follow the council members' terms?
From my recollection, it was just how the ordinance was developed.
Yeah, that's what
I don't
was
know if
told.
that's something, while we're talking about recodification, that might be something that we want to consider, because it just makes sense that you would have this committee follow the other committees where it would be appointed by the people as they come on council. But
However, you don't want to leave the committee with only 3 members at this point in time, do you, or do you?
no,
wish
I
to?
don't. No,
Okay.
I think we should go ahead and have Wallace and I appoint, but I just think it might be something for consideration for the next round of council members, so that then they have someone that they communicate with.
Well, I can tell you, council, that there's a strong possibility my appointee will probably not want to serve if I'm not on council this current election. So it probably is something we should look at for maybe just a term of the council that's on the diocese.
I think it would make it easier to keep track of, so that every time this doesn't happen necessarily too, because I don't know.
Well, I would suggest then that staff look into why they have specific terms, if that was approved by the voters when they voted in Measure L, or was that just set up?
It was set up afterwards. And I believe each council member at the time that the committee was formed made a selection. And I think that was how we got to the individual council members. And I believe that since that time, when an opening came up, it was just the decision of the council was, it's your turn, make a selection, from what I recall.
So maybe that should be revised to just go with the term of the person, the council member that appointed them.
You'd have to edit it because you could have some that could go for multiple terms of the city council, could go as short as 2 years.
Okay, so we will ask that to be looked at, but for right now then, for the next item, the next agenda, if you both could tell us what you'd like to do or who you'd like to appoint. And the requirements are that they live inside the city of Ridgecrest and that they want to serve.
And fill out an application.
Yes.
Oh, they do need to do
have
that.
those.
And they meet, what, Monday?
They meet it is a Monday. It's the third Monday of the month.
Second
Monday of the month.
At what time?
Second?
5:30.
5:30.
So do you want
It's the
me
same
to
thing.
advertise for applications, or do you have someone in mind?
It is the second Monday.
I had someone that I had originally asked when I first got on council, and then I had to go back and tell them, never mind, I don't get to pick someone. So I might go back and check with that person to see if they're still interested, but I don't know.
Similar situation. So I'll go with someone. Oh, yeah. No, similar situation. I have someone who I can.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so that is the action on this item, and there is none. Okay. Now we are going to...
No.
Hold on.
Got one more. We need to have a selection for our quad state representative. There's one vacancy.
That is, in the past, the mayor's appointed that person, and I've asked all over. I have nobody that wanted to serve on that, nor on the BLM committee that meets on the third Thursday. Fourth Thursday, thank you. Yeah, it's the same night as infrastructure. And I can't find anybody. If anybody is interested, would they please come forward and talk to me or talk to Ricker and bring your information so we can have someone representing ourselves.
Madam Mayor, may I suggest if neither the mayor nor council members have a selection in mind, would it be okay if Rika advertised that position for the city to see if we get anybody that would be interested in that?
I think it's wonderful.
Did we also check with the planning commissioners?
I did.
All 5 of them?
I did.
Okay.
I asked him. I said, come up with somebody. I even asked Mr. Matthews, who attends those BLM meetings, and he said he wasn't confident to do that because sometimes he didn't attend. Pardon me?
May I address the subject?
Please.
Yes, this came up at the last meeting last week, 2 weeks ago, whenever it was.
I'd asked you, though, before.
Yes.
Dave. Yeah.
And you also asked Samantha
Sam
Mark.
Yes.
The reason we both rejected is because we are already members of the committee. I represent the public and so does Sam. So you need to have somebody either from the city or city staff or the city council or somebody that represents the city only. You understand?
I had asked Sam if she could just report to us what was happening,
Well,
rather than make
he's been
votes
trying, but I don't
representing
know
us.
if you'll be getting it or not.
Yeah.
No. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Well, then,
Madam
if
Mayor,
no one has any objections.
is there any reason why we couldn't open this up to anybody in the Indian Wells Valley?
I see no reason.
Not at all, as long as they are representing you. Okay. But I don't know
There was
whether
no-
they should be a citizen of the city or not. That's a good question. We never thought about it.
I asked the BLM. Quad State I did not ask, but BLM I asked them. They would prefer someone who, if they were going to represent us, that we understand that they may not live here, but there wasn't a requirement that they live in the city.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway.
Because there isn't always a lot of action taken, but sometimes there is, and they'll be voting on our behalf.
So if you don't mind, we'll just advertise anybody that lives in the Indian Wells Valley. Because it is more of a general issue.
Okay. All right. So is there any other action that's required on that? Okay.
No, ma'am.
Seeing none, we'll just, we don't need to direct her to do it. You can do that, can't you, sir?
What's that, ma'am?
You can direct Rika to do that. And
She already has been.
She doesn't need our direction.
Right, it's already been done.
Okay. All right. Number 4, proposed action to drop a resolution of the city of the Ridgecrest City Council and the successor redevelopment agency adopting the annual budget for fiscal year 2018-19, establishing appropriations, estimating revenues, and establishing the policies by which the budget may be and shall be amended. Sir.
Madam Mayor, members of City Council, we have brought the budget in front of the Finance Committee for their review. Recently, on May 30th, we brought this to City Council during a workshop session where all of the managers and department heads presented the budget. At the end of the meeting, Council gave their recommendation for us to move forward with the approval of the FY19 budget. The only thing that changed in that budget since that time is that we actually added the $25,000 to the budget for the website improvement. That's been added. What I'm going to have is Tess Sloan go over all the exhibits that are attached to the resolution. That's the next phase of the information that council needs to understand what they're approving prior to the adoption of the budget.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members.
Good evening.
What I'm going to talk about is the exhibits and what you guys are actually approving in this resolution. Talking about if there's any changes or no changes and any additions or revisions. We'll start with Exhibit A. This is the budget revision policy. And there's actually no change here, same as last year's policy that you approved. Exhibit B, this is the purchasing limits policy. Again, there's no change, same as last year's. Exhibit C, the GAN limit calculation. We updated the for FY 2019 calculation using the current numbers from the Department of Finance regarding the population and inflation factors. And using those calculations, the GAN limit is $24 million, and our city's appropriation subject to that is about $12.5 million. Exhibit D. This is the staffing summary. This summary includes the staffing summary by department. On top of that, I also included a list of positions and their allocation by department. What's different in this exhibit is we have the new positions that we budgeted, the 2 wastewater operator position, operator 1, and 2 street maintenance worker 1, and 1 park maintenance seasonal worker. And we included 4 budgeted promotions, 1 in community development, 1 in information technology, and 2 in parks and recreation. There are 4 unfunded positions on this list. 1 is the community development technician, assistant finance director, engineer 2, and the culture coordinator 1. Exhibit E, schedule of fees. There is no change on engineering and planning fees. However, we have a fee study ongoing right now, and it's scheduled to be completed around August, and that will be submitted for you guys' approval. The impact fees lists are updated using the CPI index. All police department fees stay the same with the exception of the stored impound vehicle release fee from $120 to $125. Bus passes prices are the same as last year's. Dog licensing and business license fees are the same as last year's. Parks and recreation fees went up by 5%. And council chambers IT services fee is now set at $150 for the first 2 hours and $60 for each 2 hours over the 2 hours. Exhibit E, salary schedules. The one change that we have made on the schedule is the change of the grade and steps for the Director of Parks and Recreation. And the reason why it's in this resolution, it's required by the CCR 57.5 that the council has to approve the salary schedules for all bargaining groups. We have 2 schedules here instead of 1 because of the minimum wage increase on January 1st, 2019. So the July 1st, 2018 to December 31st, 2018 does not have a separate schedule. And effective January 1st, 2019, all positions that has under $12 per hour. We are adjusted by just moving the step 1 to that rate, at meeting at least that minimum rate. That's the only change that we made on the schedule. For example, the account clerk 1 from July 1st, 2018 to December 31st, that the 12.462 is step 2. By effective January 1st, that step 2 becomes step 1. And they increase, and then accordingly they adjust the step all the way to step 10. The other items for your approval, all temporary employment services, formerly contract labor, shall require city manager written authorization prior to budget amendment or expenditure. Funding for specific capital construction projects shall be identified and certified by the city manager or finance director prior to the expenditure of any funds on said projects. You're also authorizing the appropriation for fiscal year end encumbrances from prior fiscal years, and authorizing the director of finance and city treasurer to conduct all fiscal year 2017 year-end transfers and budget adjustments as required under governmental accounting rules, and such adjustments shall be be approved by the City Council. Cost allocation plan study as presented during the budget workshop. And lastly, the 2019 draft budget as presented during the budget workshop with one minor revision. It's the addition of the $25,000 for the overhaul of our website, and in exchange, I reduced the budget of the police department. The next slides just basically summaries of each major funds for the budget that we're asking for. General fund, with the inclusion of the budgeted reserves, we're asking to approve for the revenue of $16,276,754 and revenue expenditure of $16,269,940. Gas tax fund, proposing budget is $3.3 million for revenue, same amount for expenditures. Our MRA fund, proposing budget for revenue $502,993, expenditures $331,237. Transit fund, $1.5 million for revenue, and expenditures same amount. Wastewater fund, total revenue of $6,496,300. Total expenditure $3,323,977. The successor agency RDA fund, revenue is $3,648,000 and expenditures $4,253,287. Self-insurance fund, $1,927,682 in revenue, $1,797,669 in expenditures. Fleet maintenance, $585,000, $244 in revenue, expenditures $584,944. Last budget workshop, Mr. Martin requested a comparison to other cities of about similar population. So I got the city of 29 Palms, population 26,000. Their FY18 budget is $8.8 million. As you can see, they're almost all. Public safety, about 49%. I try to color them similar to our budget is on the left, 29 Palms is on the right. General fund, the general government is 21%, ours is 17%.
Can you leave that just for a minute? So I wanted to, okay. Okay, thank you. If everybody else has seen it.
City of Banning, 31,000 population. The FY18 budget is $16.3 million. Public safety, our public safety 49%, theirs 50%. General government, theirs is 16%. They have fire, we don't. The public works is 5%. We have 3. Their community development 6%, and ours is 5%.
How much? I'm sorry.
So
how much
they said
it?
our fire comes out of public safety.
Yeah, that's
so
what I wanted to see.
Yeah.
If we, because we can't really compare fire. We don't have fire.
Well,
but it would be.
We expend the money though through public safety.
I
if
got
you go
it.
back,
yeah.
back
I just
to
didn't
like,
want someone to
yeah,
compare
so that
apples with apples.
Extra 19% for fire. That's yeah.
City of Barstow, 23,000 population. Their budget for last year is $20 million. And again, their public safety is almost 46%. Ours is 49%. Their general government is 14%, and ours is 17%. They have bigger community development budget, as well as their parks and recreation.
What would they include in general government that would be comparable to a 14% of ours or somewhere therein.
It's the city council.
What is general government?
It's city
then?
council, city manager, city clerk, administration, finance.
So it would be general government?
Right, yeah, it's basically like the overhead. Yeah.
General government, general government, okay.
Yep.
So I don't know, generally if you're doing a comparison, side-by-side comparison, you'd have the pie charts with exactly the same things on the left as the right.
Which is our city.
So culture and leisure, what is...
It's parks and recreation.
Well, how come it's not, why don't you call it parks and recreation if that's what it is?
That's
we have a park and rec department. So why wouldn't we, I'm confused.
I'm sorry, that's what we call, at one point in time, they call it parks and recreation, and then somehow it got changed. They decided to change it to culture and leisure.
And go back to the slide before, is that what it's called on the slide before?
Yeah. In another.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. In city of Banning, they call that.
I'm a presentation guy. And
I'm sorry.
I see irregularities, and if you're going to compare them, you have to have the same thing on the left as the right. Otherwise, it's very difficult to follow. But okay, go ahead.
Like city of Banning, they call their parks and recreations community services.
Is the transfers to streets, would that be considered part of public works then?
I actually, there's one in here, there's another city that has a streets in here.
Okay.
12% the city of Barstow, and I...
Okay. Separate from their public
right,
works.
Yeah.
Got it. And the last one is the city of Atwater, 29,000 population. Their budget is $13.3 million last year. Their public safety is about 45% of their budget, general fund budget. Their general government is 23% of their budget. Again, they call the community services, their parks and recreation is only 4%. They don't have any money for public works?
I did not see that on their website, on their budget. I suspect it's probably included under community development.
Okay.
And I think that's all I have.
I had a couple questions. On Exhibit A, I thought that last year we had changed Exhibit A to say that transfers within departments were fine, but if they were transferred from one department to another department, that required approval. Isn't that, do you guys recall that? That if we transferred from one department to a completely different department, that required approval.
When you're saying department, you're talking about, let's say, if police is transferring to general, to finance, requiring approval. Yes. Yeah, we don't. That doesn't hardly happen.
Right.
Yeah, this rule is the same as was last year, where we have to just come back and notify council that we did it.
Okay, so you don't have to have approval, you just notify us that
Just
it happened.
notify.
I know that when you talked about making those, that's why I was trying to see whether you were talking about voting or telling us this is what they're doing, because a budget is kind of a fluid item, and I would hate to think that everything that was said would have to come back.
I couldn't remember if it was that we required us to approve it, or if, but I wanted to.
Yeah.
But you don't mean like, let's say, within parks and recreation, if they're moving around between them.
Yeah, if you took money from parks and gave it to police, or if you,
Right, we usually inform you on that one, and most of the time those departments does not want to give up the budget.
And then I had another question on Exhibit F, because you said that the director of recreation steps were adjusted, and I found it interesting, and I don't, if there's a reason why, the step one, like the chief, the director of finance, community, and public works are all the same. The director of recreation is $400 and some change dollars a month higher, and I thought that seemed. Why would that one be more than those other positions?
I think I can explain that. We just took a salary range that fit where we wanted it at. It's very rarely we're ever going to bring a chief of police in at $31 an hour. Eventually, we should adjust, the scale to probably appropriately reflect where we bring somebody in at that level.
So the other steps for the other positions should have been adjusted to be more appropriate then?
No, the only position we changed was the Director of Parks and Recreation, was we lowered the salary range on it. Everything else we left the same.
So it used to be even higher than those
It
other
was,
positions?
it was the same as the Chief of Police and Finance Director and Public Works Director.
This is the same amount that we agreed at the workshop, and
Correct.
the total amount is 2,600 additional for the entire year. That's what that comes out to.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, is there any other council questions? So let's open it up and have...
I did
I'm
have
sorry.
one more, sorry. On the RDA
Slide.
On the RDA level of service, there's a big imbalance. Is there an explanation for
It's the tab money.
the tab monies? Okay, that's what I just wanted to check on. Okay, thanks.
Okay, well, we'll reserve the rest of our comments until we hear from the public, so if anybody...
I just have one other quick comment.
Oh, go
If I
ahead.
could. So I had brought up the issue of it'd be nice if we could compare with some other cities at the workshop, and thank you, you did that. I don't know if you did that in response to what I had stated
Yes,
or
it
not,
was
but
for-
so I thank you. So my comment is minor as to calling apples apples with those things. But anyway, thank you for doing that. That's helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, public comment, please.
Good evening again, Stan Rotora. I sent a number of comments into all of the council in email recently having to do with the budget. But tonight I'd like to select just three that I think are more important than the rest. A lot of the ones I sent in were really more questions than they were anything else that was incomplete areas in the budget. But item number one is when I look at the overhead costs for the admin, particularly regarding the city manager, it seems to me it's pretty clear that there's a double hit on the city manager's quarter man year. The contractor who put together the overhead for the admin used last year where the city manager was totally funded under the general fund, and his quarter of a man year was paid for through the overhead allocation in that report. Now, for this year, what happened is we're using the overhead allocation for last year where the city manager was under the general fund totally, and we're using the overhead generated under that situation with this year where the city manager is only 3/4 time funded by the general fund and 1/4 time generated by the wastewater fund. So we've got the city manager funded 1/4 time on overhead and a 1/4 time on direct out of the wastewater fund, and that does make a few dollars difference, and I'd like to see that corrected. The second thing
Do you want, because I think Tess answered you. Didn't you answer him in an email back? Do you want an answer, or? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I can,
she's got an answer. I sure would like an answer.
You want to take that, Tess?
I sent him the explanation from
Right.
the consultant on how those numbers are.
But I can explain what we're trying to accomplish here. One of the issues we've had is every year we've been having to true up our overhead. So if we don't spend as much money, we anticipated our overhead rates are a lot higher, then we have to go back and true it up the following year, which is problematic. So what we're doing this year is we're going back a year and basing our overhead rates on the previous year. We have methodologies in there to keep from spiking. So if we have like a large purchase, that's smoothed out, so we're not hitting the enterprise funds as hard. So what you're seeing this year is our experience from last year is what we're using. So next year, our overhead will be, for FY20, will be based upon FY19. So we're trying to come up with a methodology where we're not having to go back and true up. We have to pick a way. We have to pick a way of doing this.
I appreciate the issue regarding having to true things up, because that created a major problem as a result of FY16. But the thing is, if we're going to use last year, and there's nothing sacred about last year, it was just last year, and it was real experience. But the thing is, when you change the formulation of how you are funding your people, going and using a overhead created by one scenario in terms of how personnel are funded and applying it to a totally different situation, you actually do come up with, from last year, the overhead came out of last year's budget, having the city manager fully funded under the general fund, and now only 3/4 of him is being funded under the general fund, and a quarter is being funded out of the wastewater fund. So even though I understand what he's saying, you still have to have compatibility with what you're doing, and we don't. If indeed, we could always use last year's experience as long as we don't change the makeup and the scenario of the personnel. But the way we're doing it right now is we are double charging for a quarter time of the city manager's salary.
Mr. Rator, the opposite could be true for next year. Let's say hypothetically next year my salary was 100% general fund. Then the experience would be just the opposite. It would be less money. We have to start somewhere, and we have to stick with it. That's one of the reasons why we've hired this consulting firm to give us a methodology that is justifiable, predictable, and is fair to the enterprise fund, so we have ways of keeping from spiking, to where we can smooth out this. And if you look, and you have to agree that, we are a little bit easier on the enterprise funds as we had in the past. So we have to start somewhere. We may not agree. We may not agree philosophically how we start, but this is somebody that does this for a living, and we're trying to start somewhere.
I agree that overall the charges are probably more legitimate now than they have been in the past. That doesn't make them right, and it doesn't mean that we should be double hitting the wastewater fund on the city manager's fees. I mean, that's really that straightforward.
I'm sorry, but Stan, that was the question I was going to ask, and thank you, Ron, when you answered it, because it seems to me that if you true up and you don't true up next year because you have the actual costs, like Stan says, like our city manager says, if it comes down that there is no money out of wastewater for next year because of making it overcome the true up that we didn't do this year because it's exactly what it is. It would seem to me then it would be, if you want to say that next year, then I would say you're exactly right. Am I wrong in that, Tess and Ron? If you were to say that next year that you didn't take anything out of wastewater, it was because we took it out this year so we didn't have to go back and true up, because we have to start with these figures, or otherwise we'll be truing up every single year.
You would have to have a crystal ball and find out what happened next year.
Right.
But the point is, when we keep switching our personnel around from where they are funded, whether it be direct funding under one of the other funds or the general fund, this juggling act could keep going. I think
just 1 year.
What the city manager is saying, if indeed the apportionment of personnel stayed the same, then using the last year and always using the last year would be fine. But when you change the structure of personnel, 1 year being in the general fund, the next year being somewhere else, and who knows the following year where it is, then you get a very complicated situation.
Stan, I think you're overthinking it. I mean, let's say we hired 3 more finance people, another HR person. That experience, our overhead for that year is going to reflect the previous year where those positions are not reflected. So as we grow...
So you're saying that those new people wouldn't be in the overhead budget for the year
Right.
they're hired?
Correct. So in other words, let's say FY20, we hire
I hear what you're saying,
we hire
and-
4 more finance people. Well, we're not gonna see anything from that till FY21. We're not going to see anything in FY20 for those
Yeah.
positions.
I-
We're trying to solve an issue here where we're not having to go back and true up. So we've chosen the methodology of going 1 year back, and it could be for us or it could be against us. I mean, we could have actually a little bit more overhead if I had keep 6 positions unfunded. So 1 year we would see that experience. We'd probably have a little bit more overhead that year, but then the next year it would go down. So we have to pick something and stick with it, and I think that's what we're trying to do.
I agree with continuity. I'm not sure what you're saying isn't going to create more havoc than it's solving in the future. Let me go on to item 2. The risk management overhead was calculated also by this contractor. I couldn't follow how it was calculated at all. My feeling is that the risk management overhead should be based upon how many lawsuits a particular fund has and not based upon overall. The enterprise funds, I doubt very seriously, have many lawsuits. I may be wrong there, but I haven't seen any history of where are the lawsuits coming from. I would like to see the risk management, that is the insurance, the self-insurance, be paid for by the fund that actually had the suit brought against them, both any payouts and the lawyer's fees. Because why would we charge the enterprise funds for lawsuits that are brought against the city's general fund, perhaps, is what I'm saying. It doesn't seem reasonable. Enterprise funds are supposed to have totally independence from, except for some administrative overhead, to the city's general fund. And what this is doing is mixing apples and oranges. And the enterprise funds have the potential, if they aren't isolated by themselves against the lawsuits, what you're doing is mixing monies from the enterprise funds with the general fund. And I think it's inappropriate. And I think that needs to be reviewed very thoroughly when we get deeper into... I don't think anybody actually understands this allocation process yet, based upon what I've been hearing. And I think the city needs to have a much better understanding of where all of these numbers came from, because I've read all the reports, and frankly, the data's not there. I'm not saying the numbers aren't self-consistent. They're probably correct based upon the assumptions that were made, but that's, were the assumptions correct? The third item that I'd like to bring up is the issue of a balanced budget. The numbers that I saw up here tonight for the general fund were not the same as the numbers that were given out at either the Finance Committee or at the workshop. There was a difference between the income, revenue, and the expenses of almost $400K. Now, and tonight it looked like they were almost identical. I don't know how that happened. I assume that some of those dollars that were said to be reserved funds were actually transferred in, but I don't know that
Tess, can you go back to your slide that shows the budgeted reserve funds, please?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
I'm asking her to go back to the slide that shows the budgeted reserve funds that balances the sheet.
Yeah, see, those numbers there are different by about, and there was some discussion about using reserve funds to balance the budget, which is fine.
It's correct but incorrect. We're not using the budgeted reserves to balance the budget. We're using the budgeted reserves for one-time capital expenditures, and this is how we have to show it in the budget.
Oh, okay. Well, but it did balance the budget in any
It was
event.
balanced before. The problem is that the way the system is, we're going to have to correct it next year. The system doesn't have it to where we can show budgeted reserves on the revenue side.
Okay. The one thing I would like to bring up, I'm assuming that you're using the $155,000 out of what you were calling the Measure L reserves in there. Is that correct?
Correct.
Well, I think I put this in a couple of emails. When you take money out of the general fund, which is what the general Measure L reserve is, and then you put it back in the general fund, you come up with a net zero. You're not increasing any money in the general fund by taking money out and putting it right back in. All right? I mean, it can't happen. The Measure L reserve is a general fund. Playing around with that doesn't change anything.
Well, if you can vision, you have Measure L, and let's say you budget, you anticipate $4 million coming in that year, and you spend $3.8 million, you have $200,000 left over. That money then goes into a separate pot and sits there and waits to be spent. So a couple of years later, you want to spend that money, then you take it out of that pot and you put it back in the budget. That's what
in
we're
the
doing.
CAFR, it's part of the general fund reserve, is it not?
Correct.
Okay. So the general fund balance is based upon having all that Measure L reserve in the general fund.
No.
Yes? Pardon?
Could you say that again?
I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Can you say that again?
The general fund balance is based upon having all the unspent Measure L funds in the general fund.
That's correct. It's considered right now, it's an assigned fund balance. It can only be spent for a specific purpose.
Yeah, but it is in the general fund. So anytime you take money that, don't care what you call it, Measure L reserve or what, you take that out, you are decreasing the general fund balance. And then putting it back in doesn't do anything.
Well, we're reducing our cash balance, correct? I mean, I guess the only way to fix this is to spend it the year we earned it and not save any back, I guess is the way to fix that in your theory.
And the same thing goes for the money we were talking about using on the Down Street project. We were talking about using Measure L reserve that is in the general fund for the Downs project.
Well, Mr. Ratora,
I
I think you may be getting this confused. The Measure V reserve is not considered revenue for FY19.
Yeah, okay.
It's not revenue for FY19. It is sitting in a separate pot. It's sitting in a cash balance.
It's called the general fund. I mean, there's a cash balance and there's a fund balance.
But it's not money. But it's not money. It's not new money coming in.
I understand that.
Right.
It's not new money coming in, but what I'm saying is to have a balanced budget at the end of the year, your fund balance shouldn't change. You're saying that we can take money out of the general fund to balance the yearly budget, but expecting the general fund balance not to change at the end of the year. And I'm saying if you take money out of the Measure L reserve, which is part of the general fund, you are going to lower the balance in the general fund.
Well, of course.
Of course. Okay, so if we take $800,000 to pave or help pave Downs, the general fund balance is going to go down $800,000.
The cash balance will, but I guess the only other way of solving that problem is just don't spend it.
Pardon?
I guess the way to resolve it is don't spend it. Is that what you're recommending?
No, I'm not suggesting that at all.
Okay.
I'm just saying that I got to make sure that everybody understands that if we spend Measure L reserve, we aren't balancing the budget. What we're doing is taking the money out of the general fund. Balance. Thank you.
Can I ask a question to help me understand this? Because if we consider it all in the dresser and the monies that go everywhere else is in all these drawers that you're pulling from, the money is still in the dresser. Am I making that too simple for me to understand?
That money will still stay in the dresser.
That's exactly what it is. So whether you call it the money from my underwear drawer, or you call it money from I'm sorry, I'm being a little but I'm trying to figure out how all these little okay, take away my underwear drawer. Okay.
Don't tell people where you hide your money.
Okay. All right. I'm just trying to make it so I can understand it, because I didn't disagree with Stan until I talked to him this morning or last night, and I said I don't understand the $900,000 either for Downs. And so when I went back and looked, in my mind it's still there. Okay, let's take it. It's all still there. Whatever pot it's in is the pot it's in. It's in the budget.
Yeah, if we don't spend it, yeah.
And that to be spent on whatever it is you make it, what you determine it to be. Am I misunderstanding something?
Madam Mayor, we have a balanced budget. When you look at our funds that are revenue anticipated is equal to revenue anticipated for expenditure. What we're bringing into the budget is one-time reserve money
Right.
for capital purchases.
Right. Okay. I understood that.
Yeah. It would make
Okay.
it a lot easier if the system allowed us to show budgeted reserves as a revenue item in the budget. It'd make things a little bit easier. Then you wouldn't have an offset on the bottom line of the budget.
I'm sorry, the pot that you're talking about, that the Measure L money is in, is called the general fund.
Right.
I mean, that's where it is,
Yep.
right? So it doesn't matter if it's spent one-time spending or part of continued spending. If we spend money, whether it be $800,000 or $155,000, out of the Measure L reserve, we are debiting the general fund that amount of money. That pot that you're referring to, whatever you want to, that is the general fund.
Okay.
So I still contend that if we use $800,000 of Measure L reserve, then what we are doing is taking the 1.7 or whatever it is million dollars that we have positive in the general fund now and lowering that $800K. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. I'm saying we all have to know and appreciate the fact that that money is located in the general fund, and that is what we would be doing if we spent it. Right? Is that as clear as mud?
I don't think he's saying anything that I don't. Yeah, it's the same thing, right. Whether drawer or pot or whatever. You know, it's still X number of dollars here that's put in all these little cubby holes, named whatever. Do we disagree on that, or are we?
I'm not sure what you're saying.
I'm trying to liken to something other than numbers, names. It is.
I guess hypothetically, you could say we have $1 million in our savings account and $800,000 in our Christmas account. So if you look at both of them, it's $1.8 million. But when you spend your Christmas money, you're still at $1 million for your reserve, right?
Okay. That's what I was trying to say. Thank you for that.
Yeah, but the thing is, we only have one real account, and that's the general fund. Now, unless, I mean, we have other funds, but those aren't the funds that the Measure L reserve is stored in. The Measure L reserve is stored in the general fund. So when we talk about using any Measure L reserve, the reason that we have money in the general fund now, positive, rather than the $4 million negative we had 6 years ago, is because we didn't spend all the Measure L money. But if you spend all that Measure L money, or not all of it, but $800,000 or whatever, that we didn't spend before, we will be lowering the fund balance. It's really that simple. And
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd be lowering our cash balance, correct?
So,
yes.
I just want to make a comment about the general liability for the wastewater transfer that he's talking about, the $105,000. Not only just paying for legal claims, it also pay for the insurances for the vehicles and other insurances that we pay for the wastewater equipment and stuff like that. The work, no, it's not included.
Sir.
Yes, let's leave that. We'll just leave that slide up because I'd like to actually address one item on that and something that was in the budget workshop. The budget reserve, I think, hope that most of us would agree that we really don't want to spend money out of our reserves. We've been working for several years to build that up from close to zero or below. So I asked at the budget workshop about, so it was over just about $200,000 budget for security fencing and $100,000 for carports in the police parking lot. That was stated to be from an impact fee. It was also stated to be that you could use that money for personnel. So that money could be used to pay police salaries and thereby saving that much out of the general fund, and you would not have to spend money out of your reserves for that. Now, just think practically and with a mind to be thrifty on behalf of the citizens. And if you look at the police parking lot, drive down over this road that's supposed to be closed to through traffic, nobody pays attention. They have a fence there. What they don't have is a gate or two in place. Really, realistically think that with some minor upgrades to the existing fence and placement of easily opening gates, which is super easy these days, that need could be met probably $50,000. And then you're out, $250,000, I mean, it's nice. I would like to be able to park in my garage, and I cannot for certain reasons, so I park my cars out on the driveway, and they're in the sun. Well, okay, fine. I prefer them to be shaded, but I make it through without them being shaded. So in the interest of not spending the budgeted reserves, I suggest that we don't allocate that much money for this high-cost fence and carport covering, and go back and relook and say, what's the minimum we can get by with and provide whatever kind of security for the police cars. I don't know what kind of trouble they've actually had that they could document as far as security problems and people vandalizing or whatever. But it looks like the problem will be solved pretty cheaply. So I would suggest that you not approve this and you look at that tonight. Doesn't sound like a lot overall, but there's an item that we would all like to get rid of, not spend money out of, that you could replace money into that and keep that reserve. The other thing, just want to observe the trends that were shown on the pie charts that were gone through. It's been stated for years that, we don't get much money in the city. Well, if you look at the comparative revenues for the cities that were shown, some were slightly more than Ridgecrest. One was well under Ridgecrest. 29 Palms was like $8 million. Some were just a few $1 million more than ours. So seems like, based on what we saw, granted, it's a small sampling, but local areas, similar populations, very similar incomes. So I guess it'd be nice to not keep hearing and kind of whining that we don't have enough money. We do have enough money. If we got serious about cutting spending and being thrifty around here, we'd have plenty of money. We got a lot of money coming in from the sales tax. And that's coming right out of my pocket and your pocket and everybody else's pocket that we didn't have to pay before. And it's all there. We can make it work. As far as the appropriations limit for a city manager, I think that should be reduced from $30,000 to $20,000. I believe that's what it was not very long ago, and somehow it just got arbitrarily raised. And I think that's just a policy matter. So that is an easy thing to change. And I just have to be honest and state that I was not happy with the use of almost $30,000 last year to jump ahead of what should have been the council's position and fund a survey to go out and try to figure out how to market the Parks and Rec tax assessment to the public. So if I was on the council, I would be wanting to reduce that so that this is in the, basically it's just along the lines of trying to bring back a little more control of the spending into the council's hands on behalf of the citizens. And I think if you look at lots of the expenditures, you won't find a big problem being created by reducing that limit to $20,000. And again, along the lines of being thrifty on behalf of the citizens, the proposal to change the Parks and Recs position from, I believe it's called the manager, to some lower step of department head, that's not a very big department. And this move right now is not going to mean it's very much of a salary increase, if any, but in future years, that will transition into very conceivably a large salary increase for a position that I don't really think justifies at all the kind of salary that a department director at the upper levels is going to get funded for. We're doing fine like we've been. That was done for good reason, and I don't think that reason has changed. And for a position to be funded well over $100,000 a year to supervise a department of that size is just not common practice. I don't believe. On the base, they expect DP3 employees who get paid about $100,000 a year to manage that many people, or a lot more in a lot of cases. So it's I just don't think that's something that needs to be approached and gone down the road on. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Madam Mayor, the fence project is one-time funding, not general fund.
Ronald Porter. I was listening to Mr. Rotora speak and about the administrative costs on different projects. Not asking anybody to change, just food for thought. I think we need to address the administrative costs on, because a great number of them are 218 things, and it needs to be put in a budget. This is what's being charged against those and who's working on them, and put it in the general fund for that purpose. Because in the future, it's going to be a question one place or another, and I can't possibly say that the city manager's job could be justified for 25% of the wastewater fund and an administrative cost of his job. And if we don't look at it that way, I think we're going to have a problem in the future. Says, okay, we have this lighting district, we're taking 2%, 5%, whatever it is, and say this is what it is, this is why it costs us. That's going to protect us in the future, and I think we need to look at it, approaching it in that way. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sorry. We turned our mics off, that's why, because they said they were getting feedback when the public was listening. So that's why we're turning them on and off. That was the note you saw passed all through here. Okay, so where are we? Is there council comments on this from what we've heard? And what does everyone say? Eddie, you went first.
I just wanted to ask our city manager real quick. He made mention of the fence project where it was funded from. Did that not have to go out to bid?
It is going out to bid.
And the price, was this based on the lowest bid that we got back, sir?
Yes, prevailing wage. Lowest bid, prevailing wage.
Okay, so those numbers are not just...
Correct.
Okay.
Actually, didn't that go out to bid before and the bid was too high, and so we had to reject it?
We brought it back, rescoped it, and we're putting it back out.
So we can complain about how much it costs to do business, but when we go out to bid, that's what the bids are.
Other council members? Nothing?
Ready for a motion?
Is there a motion?
I move approval.
Second.
Give him 1 second to get the slide up. He has to get through her presentation here. Please. Please vote. 5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay, the next item on the agenda.
Mic on, please.
Okay, sorry. Next item, proposed action to adopt a resolution approving a community development block grant activity agreement 1713-1 with the Kern County Planning and Natural Resources Department to provide $206,063 for the City of Ridgecrest Senior Center renovation project in the city of Ridgecrest, accepts the terms of the receipt of community development block grant funds, and authorize the city manager, Ron Strand, to sign the agreement, approve tax allocation bonds in the amount of $39,643 to cover the remaining costs of the senior center renovation project. Ms. Harker.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council. The item before you is a formal community development block grant agreement between Kern County Planning and Natural Resources and the City of Ridgecrest for the construction phase of the City of Ridgecrest Senior Center renovation project. The original allocation for this project was $141,800. Of this allocation, only $26,000 was available for design, environment, and construction management, which included asbestos testing and removal. In fiscal year 2016-17, the Kern County Planning and Natural Resources allocated another $66,000 for design, environmental, and construction management. During the design phase, a shortfall of funds in the amount of $39,643 was discovered to complete the project, which includes kitchen cabinets, kitchen sinks, hardware, and fixtures. It is proposed to use funding from tax allocation bonds. Staff would recommend that City Council approve the resolution to have the City Manager, Mr. Strand, sign the agreement and allocate the $39,643 of tax allocation bonds. I would like to point out to our City Council and our senior community, construction will not begin until the fall of 2018.
I have a question. On the $39,643, you said these actual funds will allow the city to fully renovate the senior center to meet the necessary standards. How do the standards of today, how do we go tomorrow or next week or next year? How are we going to do that? Do we have to keep upping this, or how do we do it?
It's my understanding that to complete the project, so that there is a new kitchen, this is the dollar value that we need. You would probably need to ask Mr. Patton about the dollar value that he receives from Kern County for maintenance of the kitchen on a yearly basis.
Okay. Oh, he's not. He was there. Okay, sorry. Other questions?
So you said it would be starting in the fall. How the estimation of length of the project? Do we have any idea?
Once we start, I don't. It's quite a process still just to get, to that place where we can start.
And have we started to figure out too, because they'll be displaced, obviously.
That is being handled with Mr. Patton and Kern County Senior.
Okay.
Ms. Karen, do we have a priority list of what's going to be taken care of first? A pecking order? Is it the kitchen?
That's why we're coming to you, is to make sure that it's a completed project. So they're replacing flooring, tiles. The bathrooms will become ADA compliant. Flooring, tile, plumbing, sinks, and the whole kitchen being redone with cabinets, new sinks, new fixtures, and the ceiling tiles. So if we excluded just the kitchen, now we have this beautiful building that has this kitchen that really needs a good updating. I believe the seniors are probably anxious to have that done.
Yeah, I was under the impression they had some things they wanted done initially first. So I was just wondering, were we sensitive to that to some degree, or were we?
I don't know how they will go about doing the project. I'm assuming that part of that will be between Mr. Patton and Kern County and where they're going to be placed during that time, just during the kitchen time.
That's fine.
And this is a lot larger project than what was initially planned, because initially it was only some kitchen stuff. It wasn't all of the ceiling tiles and bathrooms and everything, eh?
That is correct.
Okay.
The original grant was done in 2012.
Yeah. And then sorry, I know that's not this part, but the parking lot, is that?
That is being handled under another,
when is
project.
that construction taking place? The similar time?
Mr. Culp would be able to help you with that.
Similar time frame? Fall 2018?
Yeah, we're complete with our design and our specs. We're anticipating going out to bid here this late summer.
Okay. All right. So this place will get all fixed up?
Just never mind that. You can talk. Yeah, you go. Yeah.
I just have an answer to your earlier question.
Thank you.
And this one's actually on, so this is probably the one that had all the feedback coming from it. The answer to your earlier question is, how do you know whether you're designing it for future ones? And you don't, and you can't. What you do is you design as far up into current standards, ADA and other standards as you possibly can. And then as standards change, most often you don't have to upgrade immediately. Just next time you upgrade, you need to bring it up to the current standards again.
Okay, I understand now. Thank you.
No problem.
Is there any other council questions or comments? Public questions or comments, please.
Ronald Porter, just a quick question. The $39,000, is that from TAB funds? It's what we allocated.
That is what we're requesting, is that the funding mechanism be TAB funding.
From the RDA TAB funds?
Yes.
Okay. I was just clarifying because I know they allocated money for it in the past, and I was just curious. Thank you.
That was my concern of only having a one-time fund. So
in the past, it was the TAB funds that have been allocated were allocated for the parking lot. So is I think what he's thinking of too.
Okay. Any other public comment? Okay. Any other council comments or questions? Okay. Motion.
So moved.
Second.
Please vote.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay.
Thank you.
The next item. Number 6, proposed action to approve a resolution of the accessor agency to the Ridgecrest Redevelopment Agency authorizing a purchase and sale agreement and joint escrow instructions between the successor agency and Cecilia J. Rivera, I know I messed that name up, for the purchase of real property located at 227 South Desert Candles, APN 080-161-2500.
Yes,
Ron?
ma'am. Yes, Madam Mayor, members of City Council. What I have before you is a resolution approving the purchase sale agreement between the successor agency and Mr. Rivera regarding the purchase of 227 South Desert Candles. Now, the city came in possession of this in October of 1998 when we purchased it from HUD for $1. And the purpose of us acquiring it at the time through the RDA was for low and moderate housing purposes. When we acquired it at the time, it was in a state of disrepair. It was in a poor state. I know that over the years, the city tried to donate that to Habitat for Humanity. We tried to donate that to nonprofits. Even at one time or another, we tried to sell it and none of those efforts were successful. So over the last several years, that piece of property has slowly but surely gone into a dilapidated condition that's actually been a code enforcement issue for the city. So here recently, with the return of the housing market, with approval of council, we placed the house with the realtor on the market for 30 days and collected bids. And at the end of the 30 days, the bids were opened, and the highest bidder was Mr. Revere. And so I'm recommending today is the council approve the sale of this property as a successor agency of the former redevelopment agency. If this is approved tonight, then it would then go to the oversight committee for final approval before the sale would be completed. All the proceeds from the sale would go into a impound account for the RDA, and at some time or another would be dispersed to all of the taxing entities. Our portion of that would be approximately 7.8%.
Is there any discussion from council?
Real quick, Mr. Strand, how much do we have in this property outside of the $1? Do we have realtors' fees?
Yeah, there are fees that are
disposal fees or tear down fee or
no. This
termite
is it's
fee?
an as is sale. It's $40,000 as is. It was entered into our long range management plan in 2015, and it valued at the time for $40,000, which I thought at the time was quite generous. But the place is in total. I mean, it's in absolute disrepair. I mean, all the windows are gone, all the wiring's gone. The roof is gone. There's a pool in the backyard that is just full of junk that occasionally we have to take care of. And, you know, at one time or another, we were seriously contemplating doing a code case on it and getting rid of it just because it was such a blight to the neighborhood. We're hoping that with the sale of this to this individual that they'll rehab it and it will be a significant addition and improvement to that neighborhood. This has been a problem for us for a really long time.
And that can't be part of the agreement that will happen, that it won't he won't buy it and leave it.
Well, technically, if he buys it and leaves it, we can make it a code case because it's no longer our property.
So we would never re-inherit it again then?
No, sir. I hope we never get this property back ever again.
My point. Thank you.
There's a significant benefit for us getting rid of this property. It's going to help that neighborhood considerably. And I do believe, based upon the interest that we had from the folks that had bidded on the property, there is an intent, I believe, to rehab it for occupancy or for sale.
The last question. Do we make the public aware in reference to what are the qualifications for someone? If we had more property like this, what are the qualifications for someone to apply for those? Or do we make this information known so that other people in the public could possibly inquire it? I know you said a nonprofit.
Well, in this case, I mean, it was just recently we had an interested party that we were attempting to donate it to, and it fell through. We've offered it to Habitat for Humanity, and they do not do rehabs; they do new construction. So we made every effort that we could reasonably to be able to do that. Now, obviously, we have to be able to get value out of the property because it is a part of our long-range management plan. This is monitored by the Department of Finance, and we do have a certain fiduciary responsibility to try and get as much money out of the property as we possibly can. Yes, we paid $1 for it, and we ended up with it. So I think we spent more than $1 retaining that and fixing it over the years.
Okay, is there any other council comment or questions? Public comment.
Yes, Dave Matthews. I'll give you $2 for it. That'll double your cost.
Already sold.
Anyway, that's not really why I came up. Mr. Strand mentioned something about it would go through a sale or something and then to an oversight committee. What oversight committee are we talking about here?
As part of the dissolution of the redevelopment agency, the city of Ridgecrest became the successor agency, but there was also another oversight to the city, which was called the Oversight Committee, which it currently is made up of people appointed by either the city of Ridgecrest, County, Kern School District. It's a broad representation of folks that just ensure that whatever that the city does as a successor agency is appropriate. Now, in this case,
and it's part of the dissolution law. It's part of the law that ended the redevelopment law.
Right.
Okay.
And in this case here, since our long range management plan, which included this property, has been approved by Department of Finance, all we have to do to complete the sale is to get approval from the oversight. And really, all they're looking for is that we made the best effort we can to get the most value out of that property for.
So that committee has been in existence for a while, but just inactive. Is that what I'm gathering?
We call it, I believe it's twice a year they have meetings where they approve our.
I'm sorry, can you get closer to the mic?
They meet at least twice a year or as needed.
Oh, okay.
So I believe we're going to try and get them to approve this prior to our oversight committee dissolving, because as of July 1st, the oversight committee is going to be with the county.
Okay.
Who, because you said the city appointed people to it, I don't think I've ever seen a list of the people who sit on the oversight committee.
We can get you a copy of it.
I sat on it for years.
Yeah.
And there was the Sierra Sands, Kern County Water Agency, Kern County, the city of Ridgecrest. There's about, I think it was about seven. Seven. Who am I missing?
Okay, that answers my question.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Okay, so if there's no other public comment, are you coming up for comment?
Brian Cosner. Those agencies you were listing, did you say of that 40,000, Ridgecrest gets 7.8%? So does the rest of those then go to those various agencies?
The school gets the most.
Yeah, school district gets about 70% of that money.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, no other public comment. No other council comment. Motion, please.
Move approval of item 6.
Second.
Please vote. 5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay, next item is item number 7. Proposed action to approve a resolution of intention to sell the western portion of approximately 12.1 acres of APN 508-020-10 to a private party. Hen, you're going to talk about that with us, please?
The city acquired this property back in 2011, and it's near the Kern-McGee ball fields. Right now it's 25.51 acres. The city received a letter of intent from a private party back in December, and they want to purchase the westerly portion of it. So we're going from 25.51
Can you get closer?
acres.
Closer.
Oh,
thank you.
So we're going from 25.51 acres to the westerly portion, which is roughly 12.1 acres. And the offering price is close to, it is what the appraisal report came back at last year for price per square footage. And I believe our city attorney has a comment regarding the legal description.
We made a non-material change to the legal description since the agenda materials were posted. The fact of that the property is west of Inyo, that is unchanged. Nothing about the property changed, but we had the legal description reviewed by the title company for insurability, and they encouraged us to, the engineer that is, to add some more detail to describing Inyo Street. So we added some of that extra detail, but it's still the property westerly of Inyo Street.
Okay, is there any council questions?
I got one real quick. We know that school on the last property was getting whatever percentage. Is this all ours?
I'm sorry?
Meaning profits.
Yes.
So we don't have to share this with anyone.
To the best of my knowledge, no.
The RDA never owned this property. Right?
No,
It's the city of
this is not
Richmond.
RDA property.
Do we know how much we paid for it?
I can look that up. It is in our, I believe it's in our report here, but I don't have that number off the top of my head.
We paid a lot for it, and the same appraiser that appraised it at $220,000 several years earlier appraised it at a much higher rate. I think pretty close to $800,000. And when we questioned him regarding the change in the appraisal, his answer was it was during that time with the announcement of the BRAC. So the timing was off. Now keep in mind the sale of this property, the intent of the folks, Hobbs and Carr, that are wishing to purchase this property is they want to put multifamily housing units on it, which is something that we sorely need for our community to support the base. And that's one of the reasons why we were, pursuing this endeavor. They have approval through their board of directors to move forward on the housing project. So I would assume once the purchase was complete, we would start the design and site plan and all that sort of stuff.
Okay, is there any other questions? Any questions or comments from the public, please?
Ronald Porter. My problem is that when the agenda came out, it didn't give the history of purchasing this item, and if I remember correctly, we are selling it at a loss. But the reason we bought this property was because it was near the parks and we could have it all in one location for our parks. It was bought to keep as a park for the future. If we ever needed it, it was all in one location and we could use it. And that was the whole purpose of paying the exorbitant price in the first place, is because it was in that location. Everyone in the city should object to selling this, because if we want to expand the parks in the future, we own it. It's not costing anything. It's money in the bank. And to sell at a loss makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. There's other property that someone can put up a housing project on if they want. This gives us a single place if we want for our parks in the future. That's the reason we bought it. And I would strongly urge every council member to vote against this.
We're keeping the east half for our future.
We bought the whole thing to keep for that purpose. And because we had the opportunity at that time, I believe, to buy half of it if we wanted it. But we bought the whole thing. And I think we need to keep it together for that purpose. We don't need the, what was it, $212,000 or whatever they offered for it. It's money in the bank for us. We can always use the property. It's vacant land. It's not costing us anything. I can't see any possible reason to sell it at this time, especially the loss. If we want future ground for parks, it's going to cost us more money. There's no advantage to selling this right now except for someone wanting to build houses. The city's only reason to get rid of this doesn't exist. We bought it for parks. Let's keep it for that purpose. It's a nice piece of land altogether, and it's for our future. You always want to say, well, this is for our future. This is important that we keep this land together for that same purpose. Thank you.
The land that's remaining is the land that we need for our master park plan, the addition of new fields. So this is a sufficient amount of land for our future development that we've had designed.
And that I agree with, but we bought the extra at the time, so we had future expansions if we ever wanted it. And to abandon that reasoning, we overpaid for it. I objected at that time, but because we kept this together for that very purpose, so we could expand or use it in the future, let's keep it. It's not costing anything. We're talking about $200,000. Just keep it. There's no reason whatsoever for anyone in a rational mind to sell it at this time. Thank you.
Can you address, are we selling this at a loss? Can you explain that?
I think Ron already
I think Ron.
I know Ron did. What I would like to understand,
selling
though,
it for a
because
fair
the
market.
loss is only if we had a reason
Right, we're
for
selling it.
this piece of property. We had to buy it in one fell swoop
Right.
in order to have it for the parks, correct?
Correct. When we bought it for the appraised value. We're selling it now for the appraised value. And I think the rationale for the city entering this endeavor is so we can have a builder that wants to come in and start building multi-family housing, which is what we need. That'd be the secondary purpose.
Is there any other council discussion? Is there any other public comment? Motion.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, may I say something about the process?
Please.
This is a two-meeting process. So the resolution before you,
That's right. Thank you.
is the resolution of the intent to sell. Now this goes to the point that Vice Mayor Thomas made, which is, what if someone else wants to buy it or something like that? So that previous item, that was under the redevelopment dissolution law. So that followed that law. Now this is not redevelopment property, so we're under the government code. And the government code sets forth this process so that someone else can come forward and say, I'd like to pay $10,000 more or something. So what this resolution tonight is the intent to sell. Then we come back at a future meeting, and in fact, the resolution fixes the date of the next meeting.
June 20th.
June 20th. It doesn't have to be the next meeting, but that's what we scheduled. And at that meeting, there will be first a so-called protest hearing, where anyone, for whatever reason, can get up and protest the sale. And that will then be followed by the vote on the purchase and sale agreement.
Okay, so we then are going to approve a resolution to sell the real property, and the resolution fixes a time of hearing protest to the sale by the final city council approval set for January 20th. Have I read that all correctly?
June 20th.
June 20th. Okay. Somebody, please.
I just had a quick question as I was reading when he was going over the process. So, because it talks about the protest and then overrules the protest by a 4/5 vote. So does that mean we need to make sure all 5 of us would be in attendance at the next meeting then to ensure that if there were protests that could occur?
Well, you could have a 4/5 vote of 4 council members, but I'll have to do the math, but I think that would be it would have to be a unanimous vote.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely, because if it was 3 out of 4, that would only be a 3/4 vote, and 4/5 is more.
Yeah.
So it would have to be a unanimous vote, correct?
Okay.
But all 5 don't have to be present.
Okay.
Even if there was 3 present?
No, you'd have
4.
If there was 3 presents and we had a quorum, could we vote?
I believe
yes
you
or no?
could vote. Let me get back to you on that, but yes,
Okay.
you could have a 4/5
I was just checking,
vote.
is anyone planning, that's why I was asking it. I didn't know if anyone was planning it being done the next meeting.
Right. There are other places in the government code that require all council members present. So in this case, the law does not say that. It says 4/5 vote.
Okay.
So you could have 4/5 of a 3-person quorum. Absolutely.
Okay.
All right, is there action here?
I just have a quick question. I think I know the answer, but I'm trying to read what Mr. Porter is. We're not allowed to talk about what specific, buyer and so forth. Are we allowed to?
It's just in the public.
It is in
it's
the
Hobbs and
public.
Carr.
Okay. All right.
I think I know what Councilmember Martin is talking about. During negotiations, Those take place typically in closed session, so that would not be the time to reveal where the city is at in negotiations, because that could compromise the city's position. Now the purchase price is public record.
Right, and the stated purpose of the buyer, I don't have the book right with me. I didn't.
The property is zoned for multifamily.
Multifamily?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so that's what has to go on the property. I mean, that's...
Well, they can go single family, they can go less, but...
They can always come back. They would still have to come for site plan approval, and then if they changed it, rezone.
Right. Their plans now are for multifamily dwelling units. If they wanted to change it, to single family, then they would need to rezone it. But that's not their intention this time.
Okay.
But the project, any proposed project, is not before you at this time.
This is just to list it. So then do we have a realtor that, so once we approve this, if someone else decided they wanted to buy it for more, do they just contact you, or do they go through a realtor? How do we do that as a city?
Or they could show up at the June 20th meeting and say, council members, don't approve this sale. I'm offering more.
Okay.
So bring your checkbook.
Nah, there you have it.
Okay, so do we have a resolution?
If I may, let me just clarify one thing. If anyone shows up and offers more money, that does not obligate you to then not approve the sale. At the next meeting, you will have a purchase and sale agreement before you that you will have every right to vote for or against. What someone in the public says about what they're offering, you can take that into consideration, but it won't force you to vote one way or the other.
If I say I'll pay $100,000 or more than what the offer was, don't I have to have some credibility behind my offer, like money? I mean, not anybody can just come up and interrupt the sale because they choose to without dollars.
Right. It will come down to whether the council members are persuaded by that.
Okay.
They've raided their drawer.
Yeah. Jeez. Oh, I'm going to live with that the rest of my life. I'm sorry. I'm moving some things, my drawers around, folks. Okay. Is there a resolution here?
Yes. We need a motion.
I so move.
I'll second.
Please vote.
Oh, all right.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay, the next item is item number 8. Proposed approval of... Oh, dear.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Proposed approval of resolution approving budget amendment 1801, increasing appropriations to the fiscal year 2017-18 budget for workers' compensation claims. Tess, please.
The city clerk has been working with our third-party administrator to close a lot of our workers' comp claims that we've been carrying on the books for a long period of time. And as a result, she was able to settle 6 cases, and she's working on another one. 6 of the 6 cases we settled total to $387,555, and the one that she's working on is about $15,000 settlement. With these settlements, plus the monthly regular claims, we are projecting that the workers' comp claims for the fiscal year 2018 is going to be $815,000. The adopted budget currently is $425,000, so I'm asking to increase that budget by additional $390,000. At the same time, 2 of the settled claims have already reached its retention amount, and we are expecting to receive the excess insurance amount of $130,000 on one of them in the near future. And one of the open claim has also reached its retention amount, and that one we're expecting to receive $25,000 from the excess insurance. The city manager and the city clerk have been making changes on our workers' comp process to eliminate waste and abuse, with their active management of the claims. We're hoping to improve our experience rate and consequently reduce our workers' comp costs in future.
Okay, is there questions from council, comments?
Is this just coming out of our general fund?
No, it's coming out of self-insurance fund.
Out of the self-insurance fund?
That's correct.
But that fund has been underfunded, right?
That's correct. Right now it has like $1.4 million in cash, but fund balance-wise, it's not good.
So then, help me out, because we talked about it was underfunded and we needed to catch up. So did we take this into account when we were talking about that as well? At the budget hearing, we talked about it was going to, after next year, 500,000 or something still. So is this going to be in addition to that, or?
We're hoping, based on what she's been doing, and now that when FY17 closed, we have 49 open cases. And currently, she's got only 21 cases. So we're hoping that we budgeted $662,000 for next year in workers' comp, that we're not going to spend all that money. So it should cover some, hopefully not cover some of this money that we're going to use now.
Okay.
Okay, other questions? Comments? From the public?
Stan Rotora. I'd like to thank Councilman Stevens for her questions and comments. I want to make sure that I understand what's really happening here. Is it true that we are not increasing the workman's comp's fees at all?
We increased the workers' comp fees for next year. That's the one we said, that 42% increase in the rates. For FY, you're talking about, this is just the claims.
Right, for FY19, we're increasing the workers' comp fees so we get more money into the
revenue
fund
side, yeah.
410, I'm sorry.
That's correct.
But that is actually the insurance fund. It's 420 is the workman's comp. We just transfer money from 410
That's correct.
into 420. But in the meantime, what it appears what we're doing is, and I think this is what Lindsay was getting at, is we're depleting the already low funds in Fund 410 to put them into 420 to pay the bill. And we got to pay the bill, but it seems to me that rather than just continue to deplete an already reduced fund, what would be more expeditious or more fiscally sound would be to retroactively go back and increase the workers' comp fees from the beginning of the year so we could have more money in the 410 fund, which we've already, we've been talking about building that fund up, not taking it down. And it seems to me we're going in the wrong direction. So it seems to me that we should consider maybe some other alternatives than just taking more money out of something, because we're going to have to build that back up. And it would make more sense to increase the work comp fees for FY18 so that we aren't faced downstream with this bow wave that's going to hit us. We know it's going to hit us. It just, in my mind, seems like there's a better way to do it. Did everybody?
I think I can help you out.
That's a lot of hand waving.
I think I can help you out there a little bit. One of the reasons why we saw a 40% increase in the workman's comp rates was because we knew we were going to experience this deficit this year. The last several years, you remember the slide at the budget workshop where we showed that over the years we were actually budgeting revenue-wise in that fund less than what we were expending. So we had a negative amount going in for the last few years. This year, We actually increased it to the amount we believe it should be at, as well as probably increasing it by, I think it's 136,000 for next year. So this is one way we're trying to resolve the hole that we're in. We know that over the next few years, we have to build that account back up to about 1.7 million. And one of the things that Ms. Charlon's been working on is working aggressively with our workman's comp provider in closing some of these accounts, so we lower our administrative costs, we lower a lot of our exposure in an effort to reduce that amount so we can build that fund back up. So what you're seeing in the rate increases was expected, and that was a causal effect of why the rates increased, because we knew we had these costs coming up.
Yeah, I agree with you. The issue is, though, that we've underfunded the Fund 410 due to workers' comp now for like 4 or 5 years in a row. And the solution in my mind, because the work comp revenue is different than the risk insurance funds. They come onto a different category of funds. The thing we should be doing is making the salaries, which should be paying for the workman's comp or workers' comp, increase those and do it as early as possible. And it certainly is helpful to raise it next year for next year. What it doesn't do is solve the problem that we've had for the last 4 years, is all I'm saying. And further reducing an already depleted fund isn't all that helpful. Because we're going to have to build it up again anyway.
Well, we're settling cases. I mean, this is just a necessary thing that we have to do in an effort to reduce it in the future. But you are correct. We have underfunded it in the past, and this year, with Tessa's help, we've increased the rates so we can have a positive number, hopefully, at the end of next year.
Yeah, and I guess I just wish we would have done something 3 years ago so that we weren't in this situation.
I have no control over that.
Were you saying like the amount coming out of someone's paycheck for workman's comp?
Well, salary. Yeah, I mean the workman's comp is added to the salary. Under salary, there's like 10 different items that are adders to the salary. That's where the workman's comp dollars should come from. All right, that's where they should be budgeted. The risk self-insurance fund comes as an overhead fund that is calculated a totally different way. And so anytime you take the workman's comp fees or claims and pay them out of the risk insurance, that money wasn't actually intended for workman's comp. That was supposed to be for the self-insurance. So it's like being two different colors of money that came out of the same budget, but in a different manner.
Right. So are we increasing the amount that's being taken out of paychecks? That's what we are doing.
Well, I don't know that they're not coming out of paychecks. It's the overhead that goes. My understanding is the workers' comp fees that are added onto the salaries get transferred into Fund 410 to pay those work comp fees when they're transferred from 410 into 420.
Okay.
And that's the way it ought to work, and there should always be enough money there so that when you transfer it from 410 to 420, it is there. And we've gotten way behind the curve. And the sooner we do something to straighten that out, and what I'm thinking is going back and retroactively increasing the workman's comp rates for all of FY18 would put more money in 410 so it could be transferred out into 420 without depleting 410 further. I think
to do that, Stan, would be reducing our general fund balance.
It'd have to come out of the general fund. Yeah. So it'd lower the general fund even more.
Well, actually, the workman's comp comes out of all the funds because all of the salaries are subject to workman's comp, right? And all the risk management funds come out of all the funds as well, but they're coming out at a different rate. One is based strictly on salaries of the number of workers. The other one is based upon whatever algorithm we're using today for the risk management overhead. And they're different. Thank you.
Okay, is there any other discussion? Any other public comment? Okay, motion. Nobody wants to make a motion?
You guys sticking me with all these tonight? Is that what
Okay, I'll move. I'll move.
Look, she made one. Now you second.
I'll second.
Okay.
Please vote. 5 ayes, motion carries.
You guys all vote aye.
That was
but you
tough.
won't make the motion.
We won't make the motion, yeah. All right, the next
Peggy did.
item.
I made one.
Whatever. Item number 9. Whatever. Proposed, that sounds like a kid, huh? Proposed action for approval of resolution initiating proceedings. 1, initiating proceedings. 2, preliminary approval of engineer's report. 3, declaring the city's intention to levy the annual assessments and setting the date of the public hearing for the annual assessments of the Consolidated Landscaping and Lighting District number 2012-1, herein referred to as the district. Mr. Culp.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, City Council members, this is a procedural item before you tonight. Item 9 as well as item 10 are procedural items to perpetuate our number 1, our lighting landscape maintenance district, and then for item 10, it's our special benefit assessment district for our drainage sump. This particular item tonight is what we do have to do every year for our lighting landscape maintenance district. It's prescribed by the 1972 Lighting and Landscape Maintenance District, and also by the Proposition 212 proceedings required to do this annual process. What I have before you tonight are 3 resolutions. We're going to be asking you, first of all, to initiate the proceedings. That's just to announce that we are going to proceed with the process. The second resolution is to approve the annual engineer's report, which is a part of your packet there. And the third resolution is to declare the intent of our levy, as well as establishing the date for our public hearing for the process. And we are scheduling the public hearing for June 20th, our next council meeting. I might mention that we do have to have our approvals in order to make the deadline for the county tax rolls. That'll be due on June 22nd. So it's important that we meet our schedule for the process. I might mention that there has been some adjustments to the Consolidated Lighting Landscape Maintenance District. We had asked our consultant to evaluate one of the zones, in particular Zone 3 of our district, and they have made a significant change in that. We did correct an error in the report. It was originally identified as multi-family residential, and we corrected that to general commercial, as well as identifying it as vacant property, not having any improvements, and therefore the consultant was able to make a significant reduction in the assessment for that Zone 3. We do have our annual increase of 3.5% to the assessments. We are permitted to have an annual increase to stay abreast of inflation and the costs associated with the district. With that, I am now available to you for any questioning you might have.
I have a couple. Tell me how this commingles works against, in favor of. We council had given you all direction that we would like you to explore a citywide landscape and lighting district. If we're proceeding with that, how are we doing all these little ones? How do that have already been, or we're raising and changing? It seems to me they don't commingle well. I mean, how are we doing this? We're going to have a whole citywide one, and then we're going to have these that are just in the city but separate from, in addition to? Help me understand.
Well, the citywide would only be for the lighting. We would only be doing a citywide lighting maintenance district. The landscape would be an independent funding method for these particular zones, if landscaping is indeed a part of that. And I believe in all of these cases, in all of these 5 zones, landscaping is a function. So if the city does decide to have a citywide assessment district for lighting, these would be incorporated within that. And so there would be some action that would be required in order to take these existing zones and incorporate them into the citywide lighting district. If it is unsuccessful, the existing lighting landscape maintenance districts would still remain. Those are still in effect. It still requires your action tonight in order to perpetuate them, and so depending on what the cities decides to do by a vote, we would still have these intact.
If we went the other direction, what we'd see, let's say hypothetically, the city council decides that they want to move forward with the lighting district citywide. That would potentially help us address new developments. We would have one engineering report instead of 6, 7 separate reports. All have their administrative costs, so there'd be a reduction in that. And that, obviously, you'd have the scale of economy. So right now, with this is the Bowman Channel area. This is Walmart area. It's important that it continues for us to maintain that area. Staff is still working on a proposal to bring to council to where we can come to council with a plan of how are we going to make it easier for the developers, how are we going to make it less expensive for these pocket assessments that we currently have. And I think that's what we're currently going to be working on over the next couple of months to come back to council with.
That was in the budget?
Yes. I did budget a certain amount of money in the budget if city council wishes to go that direction. But this is important to be approved tonight, because without this, then all the maintenance landscaping at Walmart comes to a stop, or the city of Ridgecrest, we have to assume it. And I don't know if we want to assume that in our budget.
Okay.
Now, we went out to bid for a contractor to be maintaining this, but we haven't awarded a bid yet. Is that correct?
That's correct. We have not. We went out to bid. We received, actually it wasn't a bid, it's a proposal for services. And we received one proposal. And we felt that proposal was in excess of what our budget is. And so we're taking other action to, in the meantime, to take care of the landscaping. And so we're I believe we'll be reporting to you on what our actions will be to continue our maintenance of these districts.
Right now, we're doing it in-house at a lot cheaper rate than we would if we would have accepted the bid of the one contractor that proposed. It was significant. It's much, right now, I believe, the way that Lauren and Bart are looking at it, it's a lot less expensive for the people that are paying the assessment for us to go that direction at this time.
So the Parks and Rec is weeding and stuff like that over there.
Right now, I believe it's going to be street maintenance.
Street maintenance.
That's picking it up for the period of time until we can come up with a plan on how to come to council with a proposed resolution.
Okay, because if I'm reading this right, the maximum assessments are about twice, a little more than twice what we're actually
correct.
billing
We
for
can't
this
go
year.
we can't go over, but we can obviously approve under.
Right.
The council can.
Yeah, so the maximum would be 12,000, and right now we're proposing 5117. So we could raise the assessments if it was going to cost a lot more to maintain.
If it was
I think
more-
part of the problem is we had a very wet January. I guess we got a lot of weeds growing, and no one has pulled any yet. So
Right. Yeah, we can go up to that maximum amount if it's warranted. And if we have to go higher than that, then we have to go back to the property owners for an increase.
I just feel we're stretching our employees on other stuff, and then we add all this to do it be done too. It's so I guess then the assessment district pays us for staff time.
Correct. The optimum would be for us to be able to hire an outside contractor to manage it. And it may eventually be, cheaper, more beneficial to the city for us to do it. I don't think Mr. Lauer's made that, that assessment. But we do know we need to get work done out there, and the bid that we got was excessive. So we could have paid that at the expense of the property owners, or we could have absorbed it and did the best we could.
Okay, is there other council comment?
I got another question just hit in my mind. So if I did a proposal on that, do I have to pay my employees prevailing wage?
Yes,
that's what correct. I thought. But the city does not have to pay their employees prevailing wage.
Correct.
Correct.
So in a way, it's unfair to the contractors in town because they have to pay a lot higher wage than the city has to pay. No?
Yeah, come on up, Bart.
We should just have you sit here, sir.
Excuse me a second, but I have an idea. We do these things all the time. Where's Jed? You're there. Can we get wireless mics? Are real cheap. They're really no big thing. Maybe a good idea for no, not just for you. I'm not saying, but for any time we have something like that, it would be nice. They don't cost much. That would be a nice, helpful thing. Okay. And not for you. I didn't mean to call you out for that, but I just noticed in all public meeting places, they have that, and that'd be a nice thing to add. I just noticed.
Now, am I supposed to give my name every time I come up?
No.
I'm just checking.
Just your address.
We did some research into this, and the prevailing. I'm sorry, it's hard to talk into the mic and look at you at the same time. The prevailing wage is actually not a whole lot more, or a whole lot. It's about the same what we pay our people actually, but landscaping is a much lower prevailing wage than like construction.
Okay, because I'm only familiar with construction prevailing
I know, and
wage.
it's quite high.
And we end up paying about 3 times as much for them to work on base as we do for them to work in town.
And I would say that that's very close to true, and that's why there's a rule for construction that your maintenance, your in-house crews can only do so much of capital projects, because the contractors in the state got upset that there was, but this here in particular, prevailing wage for this type of item isn't all that high.
Oh, okay.
Okay, why don't you wait just 1 minute? Is there any other council comments?
Don't go away.
Any other public comment? Come on up and join us. I knew we'd get to you, so you could now come and talk. Thank you. Sorry to make
just a
you
long
wait so
meeting,
long.
huh?
So this is on, yeah. David Hoagland. Lauren has been a great help to us. We were involved in the special assessment districts. Our property taxes went up 1,000% on unoccupied, vacant commercial property on Bowman. We bought it 25, 30 years ago. And between the Havens and myself, our taxes went up to $10,000 a year for landscaping and lighting. I drove out by there last night, and we have a total of 5 lights on our property, and I think they're turned down to about 70 watts. There's not much. We have no plants. We have no trees. There's no landscape part to this for us, and there's really the lighting is very minimal, but we're happy to pay a little bit, and looks like we are going to still pay probably twice as much as we used to pay, but we're certainly glad for them finding the error and coming back, because to come up with that much money is just not in our budget. I mean, we budgeted paying that property off for 15 years and paying the property taxes for another 20 years, but not 1,000% increase in the taxes. So when they found that, I mean, he answers my phone calls when I call him. He's a great public servant. I'm amazed. So I'm just kind of here to say, I thought I was coming down to fight this, but now I'm coming down to say thanks for what you did for us. I think you're wrong up there on Walmart. They're paying $26,000 a year on their revised taxes for landscaping and maintenance and lights. So it's not like they're not going to be taken care of. And that's all well and good, because they're making money. If we'd sold our property and whoever buys it was making money, they should pay for the landscaping and the lighting. But it's negative all the way through for us, and still has been. And I'd just like to say thanks a lot to the engineers and to Lauren for your help. That's all I got to say.
So you're not unhappy with the assessment that they've come up with?
Well,
I mean, you want to pay nothing. You want to pay what you lowered, but
it was normally $500 a year, $550, something like that a year. Now it's over $5,000. So it was an incredible jump, and I think we had talked earlier about it. That for unoccupied, vacant property that has no benefits from this, it's difficult to budget that out as a single retired person. It's tough. I mean, married, but for a big company, it's okay. So yeah, I'm happy with what we've seen.
So they've been adjusted back down then?
Well, it's still twice as much as it used to be. So
because the total assessment of the whole district is only $5,100.
You look at how much Walmart pays.
You're looking at just one.
Just one of them?
There's 2 pages of them. Walmart alone pays $26,000.
Yeah. Yeah. There's 3 of them.
Yeah. Okay. So
they're doubling our taxes, and we can't afford to go ahead, or I don't know what we'll do to pay $5,000. Does anybody else have $5,000 extra bucks for your property tax? And the thing that worries me is this vote is going on the 20th, and like Lauren said, it has to go to the tax assessor by the 22nd. If not, we're going to get stuck again, and we just can't do that. So I'm hoping that everybody will roll with this, get it done efficiently, and get it. Can that be done that quick and get it to them by the 22nd? Yeah?
Yeah. Yes, we will be able to.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for your time. Any more questions?
I don't have a question for you, and I'm not questioning how you came up with it, but really to go from 500 to 5,000 is a considerable increase. And I'm not trying to say that. I'm just trying to understand, is that proportionate over all the properties in that area? Is that similar?
It is for the zone 3.
The 3 zone.
It's true for 3.
Yeah. Okay, I thank you. It looks like this. Yeah, that's right. Oh, Mike is, okay.
Stan
Right.
Rotora.
Thank
I'm
you,
on the
Steve.
wrong section. I'm on.
One of the reasons why the lighting costs are so high is for some reason, I don't know, 8 or 10 years ago, the city, for whatever reason, decided to give the lights to Southern California Edison, and now what we're doing is paying LS1 lighting costs. Basically, we're paying as if Edison had actually installed the lights with their own dollars, and we're amortizing those lights over these years. And that's one of the things that the people who are now involved in these new landscape lighting districts are trying to turn around, is we can save by a factor of 3 or 4 if we go to LS2 or LS3 lighting. And that's the only thing that's going to make it affordable. Even though this gentleman may be saving some money, that we're still paying LS1 lighting to Southern California Edison, so someone is paying those dollars. And what we need to make sure when we do the restructuring that we do the best job we can to make it affordable. Just because the city is being able to dump the cost off onto the landowner doesn't mean that we should make him pay the highest price we can. We need to make it affordable for everyone, which means we need to get down to LS2 at minimum and hopefully LS3 lighting for anything that's coming in new. Otherwise, we're going to have this problem forever. And we really don't want to do this. These are our neighbors. These are our friends. We need to do better in the future. Thank you.
Stan, when we discussed this a month or so ago, that was the intent for us to look at that when we go to this citywide. And that was the intent to see whether that was a reasonable option, LS2 or 3 lights, or where we are now. And so it isn't, we're ignoring this because we are staff.
Oh, no, I understand that was the intent.
Yeah.
I just want, what we need to do is follow through on all our good intentions, and I think we're going to be a whole lot better off. Thank you.
I thought we looked at this about a year or so ago, and we could switch the lighting out, but Edison wasn't going to cut the cost.
Yes, that's true. There was one opportunity the city had of purchasing all the lights within the city, and well, that opportunity has since passed. Apparently, there were several cities within California that was complaining that their rates were too high, and so I think it was the Public Utilities Commission dictated to Southern California Edison to make the lights available to communities and opened a window of 1 year to offer them to cities. And I believe there is a complete citywide assessment of what the value of those lights were. It was presented to the city, and it was presented to the city manager at that time, and it was a number that was just too far out there to reach. But there was an opportunity in which we could have purchased them, and we are intending on bringing the lighting charges or the different rates before the infrastructure committee. So we will have a very in-depth presentation for you as to the varying rates and what they may mean in terms of ownership and maintenance and cost.
So we were given an opportunity to buy these lights back that we as subdividers paid for and gave to Edison. And now they're Edison, so Edison can sell them back when it didn't cost them anything to put them in the first place?
That's my understanding, is that the lights were appraised, the value of the lights were appraised, and the total dollar figure for all the lights within the city was presented or offered to the city, and at that time it was an amount that, well, we were in fiscal emergency at that time, and the city manager determined that it wasn't going to be something we could afford.
And that's why we talked about stop signing them over. And is that something that I know we're talking about the lighting and landscaping district, but if we continue just to have the subdividers sign over them, then at some point, if we do want to, we could be taking them in for free versus paying SCE for them. Is that?
But then we'd have to pay Edison to service
to
them,
do
I
it?
guess.
Yeah.
Like I said, I needed the exercise in.
I just know in my last subdivision, I put in 6 street lights. I paid Edison the total cost of putting them in, and now they own them. They can sell them back to the city for the $6,000 or $7,000 that I paid. What? 6 or 7. They were $1,000 a piece, I think. Something like that.
All right, can you hear me? All right. So the way this works, at least, and Lauren described it quite well, is it was expired about 1.5 years ago, and it was open for 1 year. They estimated that now once they put them in their inventory, they belong to them. I asked the same exact question.
I understand that.
And I said, well, if they were our lights before and we paid for them, why do I have to pay to get them back? And basically, once they put them in their inventory, they belong to them, and it would be incorrect for us to assume that we could have them back because we gave them to them. I'm explaining how it was explained to me. One of the things that you have to look for this is it's not just. I don't have my numbers in front of me. I apologize, but there's so much for a cost for an LS1, so much for an LS2. There's a 3 as well, and then there's solar. And one of the things that we were asked to look at was solar lights, and we've started that process. One of the difference between an LS1 and an LS2 is basically their cost to take care of the light. So in other words, if it gets knocked down, if the bulb goes out, if et cetera, et cetera. With the LS2, if I remember correctly, the difference is we pay for the electricity. They still own, we own the light, but we still have to pay for the electricity. And 3, I believe, goes to where there's a meter over here, and we have to take care of everything after that meter. So it becomes a much larger maintenance cost for us as you go up from 1 to 3. We don't have the ability or the people to take care of this. I'm not saying we can't do it under contract. I'm just saying currently we don't have the ability to take care of street lights on our own. We don't have a bucket truck. We don't have people to come out in an emergency. If it became a problem, I'm not advocating for any of them because I haven't done enough research yet. I'm just saying these are the things that after our first discussion I've noted that we need to make sure we include in any thought process, going
right.
one to the
and
next.
That's fine, and maybe this is something we can look at down in infrastructure at a later date. But you mentioned something about, so Edison is responsible for fixing them, maintaining them.
Absolutely.
If they get knocked down.
Everything
I guarantee
except
you,
Ridgecrest Boulevard.
I guarantee you if I'm driving down Street and I hit a light and knock it down, Edison's going to put it back up, but they're going to bill me.
Quite possibly.
No,
especially if they catch you.
Positively.
No. Especially if they catch you.
Yeah.
But there's still but that's part of their maintenance. So that's just the explanation and the knowledge I have at this point in time.
Thank you.
Did I actually answer your question, I hope?
Yeah, yes, you did.
Okay, good.
Wait till we get done here. Okay. Stan?
About 10 years ago, Lancaster City, just south of here, of course they're like 3 or 4 times bigger than we are, they put forth an ordinance requiring that all new developments be LS3 lights. They no longer wanted Southern California Edison to have any lights dedicated to Southern California Edison. I have checked locally with RED Electric. They're the ones, it turns out, that actually put all the new floodlights into the Kermagee field. They're more than qualified to install, take care of any and all lighting that we have. I mean, that's one local contractor that we could get. There's probably others, but the fact that the city doesn't have its own cherry picker and people that are qualified to replace the light bulb, really isn't that issue. Isn't an issue. These lights last for anywhere from 14, 15, 16 years. So the amount of maintenance on these lights is really very minimal. So I agree with Bart. We need to do our research, but the last thing we want to do is be scared about saving some money because we might not be able to do something. There's always somebody out there that we can contract to and save money. And based upon a very short conversation I had with the people out at RED Electric, no problem at all. They can do it all. They've done it. They do full installations. They do most of their work for the federal government. It turns out because it's easier, believe it or not, to work for the federal government than it is to work for a public agency. She wasn't able to explain that to me very well, but that's what she said. But in any event, they're willing to do it. It's a matter of having a contract, and they'll just take care of it. We don't have to worry about it. But we can save money in the meantime. And I think we need to follow in the footsteps of what Lancaster did 10 years ago and get with it, because it is like a factor of 4 savings. And Bard was right. The difference between LS2 and LS3 is LS3 you have to have a meter. And they charge per meter, and so they use the actual metered electricity rather than using the wattage on the light bulb to just sort of assume whatever you're using. One is metered and the other one, LS2, is unmetered. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Any other council comments? A motion?
So moved.
Second.
Please vote. Please. 5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay, next item. Let's see, that was number...
Did I just stay here long?
That was number 9.
That was number 9. Okay, number 10.
Yeah.
Is this the same thing but for
9
drainage?
and 10.
Yes.
Okay.
How about that? There's only one.
Thank
it's
you.
Just for drainage.
Okay. So what is it you would like us to do? Do number 10 then?
Honorable Mayor, yes, this is almost identical to the
Yes.
Lighting Landscape Maintenance District, but it's for our drainage benefit assessment district. And again, this is a procedural item that's required every year in which we must follow the process. And we have, again, 3 resolutions for you to consider. The initiation of the proceedings. The second resolution is for the approval of the engineer's report, the annual report. And then the third resolution is to declare the intent to levy the tax and to set the public hearing date for June 20th.
Where is this property located? I'm sorry, but my eyes cannot read any of the
Yeah, it's
dates on there.
up in the College Heights area. It's one of the first tract was the D.R. Horton tract. There's
Okay.
there's a portion of those lots that do contribute to that detention or detention basin. Then Mr. Stephen Hare or Tom Martin's tracts that are directly north of the Horton project are the other 2 tracts that drain directly into that drainage detention basin at
Did we do any
Springer and College Heights.
Did we do any reductions on this one like we
No,
did for
these are relatively minor assessments for this particular drainage facility, and the only adjustment we've done is the allowed 3.5% increase in the assessments.
So the space between the red line and the blue line is College Heights Boulevard, is that correct?
Excuse me, let me get to that. Are you looking at the exhibit for the areas?
Yes.
Yes. The exhibit is a very good exhibit to demonstrate the areas. Yes, if you look at that exhibit on page 13, it does identify all the parcels to be assessed. And you'll see there's a portion of that which is the D.R. Horton tract that is draining to this facility. And then the other two tracts are the tracts that were formerly with Tom Martin, now owned by Mr. Stephen Hare. And those are the only parcels or properties that are being a tax levied against.
Okay.
Okay, is there questions or comments from council?
Nope.
From the public? Okay, then we'll entertain.
I'll move approval.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Please vote. 5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay, we've done the public hearing, so now we will come to committee reports. Mike, did you want to report on City Org?
City Org, we did meet Monday, and we really only talked about 2 items, basically, and we're setting up Jed's setting up a meeting. We talked about dilapidated properties and trying to get them fixed up and maybe making some available to contractors to fix up if they can buy them from the buyer or from the seller. And Jed, you're setting up that meeting when? The meeting of the 18th. We're going to invite all the realtors, contractors that might be interested and see if we can provide a little bit of information for them to maybe clean the town up a little bit. With the last meeting, we saw a video going around town showing some of our dilapidated properties. And then we've also talked about starting, we used to years ago have a citywide cleanup where volunteers would come out on a Saturday and we'd basically just clean up the town to make it look prettier. And we're talking about doing that in the fall. And we're going to try to get the chamber and other organizations and clubs to participate in that. And that was it, wasn't it?
There was one item. Stan had asked, because a year or so ago, or even longer, I had asked for goals, and we hadn't done anything on it. And we had asked Rika, or I guess we asked Heather to put it on the agenda to see what the council felt about it. But quite frankly, after thinking about it, I'd like to see if we can just get some concurrence from council without taking a vote. That I think the goals should be, I don't want to ask staff to start working on goals for us that we give them, that I think it should come after the election, and a council that may or may not be the same make those goals. I don't want that council to come back to staff and say, well, you know those goals that you all talked about and approved here? They should really be the goals of the new council. And so, Rico, I'm not excited about putting it back on the agenda. So I know, Stan, we promised you we would, because you were very eloquent in saying how the goals should be discussed by everybody. But quite frankly, I was concerned about our impact on staff, to give them a whole set of goals and then come back and have a new council say, well, these are our goals. Does anybody have any problems if we don't put that on the agenda?
Don't we already, I thought there already was goals.
There are goals, but we don't have goals that were to recite a whole bunch of new goals.
It's generally the councils will get together when there's newly elected, and they'll kind of set what would we like to do in the near future type goals.
Right.
And that's what I believe you're talking about.
Right. We had attempted to schedule that at one point.
We did, and it got canceled. It was on a Saturday, and it got canceled, so it just never picked back up.
I'll be frank with you. I haven't put that on because I think staff is on a significant number of goals at this time. You know, we have the fixing the streets, the slurry machine, the wastewater facility. We have a lot of stuff that we're working on, the groundwater sustainability plan, revamping our building department, how we interact with builders. I mean, we have a lot of stuff that we're currently engaged in goals-wise. So, I think we've been open to anything that council has brought to us about problems that they see in the city. So I think we've just absorbed the goals, the concerns that you guys have had, when I came on board, on what you guys wanted us to do. So we keep collecting a lot of stuff, and so we're trying to get through it all. So I'm always open for any new ideas. Like tonight, we're talking about a landscape and lighting district to solve a problem. Park assessment district to solve another issue. So we're on a lot of goals right now. So I don't mind having a workshop to talk about what staff's doing and what we can maybe do better in the future. But we have a lot on our plate right now.
Okay. All right. So city org. Now finance.
We haven't met yet. We meet the third Monday.
Infrastructure.
Infrastructure.
You meet
we
the
canceled
fourth?
We canceled last month's meeting. We didn't have enough on the agenda.
Right.
So our next meeting will be
the fourth Thursday.
3 weeks from tomorrow.
I thought it was
Because
going to be.
she was
It's going to
gone.
be on the 21st.
We
thought.
changed that, didn't we, to the
Yeah.
21st? So because you're going to be gone. So.
Do you know, Lauren?
I believe it is the 21st.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Okay.
Okay. I just did that one. Parks and Rec.
We did not meet this month.
Okay.
Well,
Youth Advisory. You
They're
haven't met
done.
either because it's the second.
They had their presentation.
Yeah.
That they gave.
Action.
That's September.
Okay. RACVB.
I don't have anything good to report.
Okay. Economic Development Committee.
That's next week. And we'll be hearing, if any of you want to come, but it will be also at the next council meeting, we'll be hearing about broadband from Race Communications. And then a team of us went to Las Vegas for ICSC with our new consultant from HDL. It was a much more productive conference this year than last year, I would say personally. The new consultant seems to be doing his job, and so we had, I think we went in with 8 meetings scheduled and picked up several more while we were there with hotels and some good restaurants. And then there's some other landowners there, developers that are aggressively moving forward with some parcels they have in the city too. So
great. Okay, other committees, boards, and commissions.
The report from KernCog. Well, you already know about the ribbon cutting. The way KernCog is set up is we basically have a presentation at 6 o'clock, and then we have a meeting at 6:30, and then a second meeting. And those usually go pretty fast. But the presentation this last month was on Kern County Homeless Collaborative Combating Homelessness, and I think I've given a little false information out, so I want to correct that. I guess I was brain dead when they mentioned the percentage of homeless people that live in California is, I said 50. It's 20. It's a little over 25% of all the homeless in the United States actually live in California. And they do a survey every January, and actually the homeless went down a little bit because they changed the survey times. They used to do 2 different surveys, one at night and one in the day, and now all the surveys have to be done. I think it's between 2 in the morning and 8 in the morning or something like that. So they basically have volunteers drive around town and look for homeless. They came up this year with 515 homeless. No, 885 homeless in the county, and 550 of those were residing in shelters or transitional housing programs. They only came up with 6 in Ridgecrest, and I think you said you knew more than that. But anyway, that's because they got this limited time frame to do it. That's all they found. I went online and looked at homelessness a little bit. It's interesting. A lot of the states, the homeless population has actually gone down a little bit over the last couple of years, but between 16 and 17, California went up 16,000 in homeless in 1 year. The second place state was New York. They went up 3,000. So we have a major homeless problem in the state of California. Not quite as bad in Kern County as some other places, but in fact, you're seeing on the news where Orange County's been fighting them, moving them out of the wash area, and then they have to put them somewhere, and it's a very expensive proposition. If you go online, you can see how much money is being spent on homeless people, and it's probably going to get worse rather than better. The only reason it went down 1 year is because they changed that rule on when they can check them. So I got a booklet here if anybody's interested. It's the cost-benefit analysis on homeless approach in Kern County. That's it.
Okay. Do you have any committees? The only one I have is a GSA meeting. Actually, it isn't a GSA meeting. It's a get-together of the well owners in Inyo Kern at the senior center at the county building at 6 o'clock. And I sent you all the latest update on the plan, and it'll be staff will be taking care of it. And Ron, do you want to address that at all?
Yes, it's primarily an informational meeting designed to update well owners in the county area that are currently uninformed of what's going on with the groundwater sustainability. It's an additional effort that the Groundwater Authority is taking to reach out to all the well owners, even though most of the well owners that are affected will not have to pay a pump fee. They will be required to be able to register their wells, so we want to be able to get that information to them ahead of time so they understand the reason why, and then what the forms look like, and then what the time frame would be to fill out the forms for reporting. You want me to go into the change of the ordinance reso to the ordinance?
Yes.
Staff has recommended, we'll be recommending to the board that there was an initial intent that we would establish the pumping fees and the regulations by ordinance and then set the fees by resolution, which is similar to what we do and the county does. But in looking at the Joint Powers Authority, it was decided that it would be better that if the Groundwater Authority established both the methodology, the policing powers of it, as well as the pumping fee, all as one ordinance. So we're going to have the first reading of that ordinance on the 21st, and then the second reading the following month, and then it will be effective 30 days after that. So it's going to set us back about 30 days in beginning to collect pumping fees. But we believe that it's a better way of establishing the pumping fees. It makes it a little less the ability for somebody to challenge it. So that's where we're heading. It shouldn't change too much, but it's just a procedure.
When is that meeting again?
Tomorrow, 6 o'clock.
Yeah, it's the Inyo Kern Senior Center or Community Center on Broadway.
And 500 notices went out to well owners, so they know that.
Yeah, I've been getting some emails, some questions. So hopefully we'll have new people there that we can educate.
Okay, city managers report. Oh, I'm sorry, Lindsay Wallach, did you have any meetings? Okay, city managers.
I have none.
Okay, future agenda items. Anybody? Pardon me? Okay, I have some I would like us to look at. I know that you all saw in the news that Governor Brown signed a bill limiting water usage to 50 gallons a day per person. I'd like to share with you what the water district says that people are using right now. The average water district using is 270 gallons a day. And the water district is going to be fined. Now, this isn't immediate. It'll be in the future. The water district is going to be fined $1,000 a day for every time people go over that. And in a drought, it's going to be $10,000 a day for if you don't maintain that 50-gallon usage. Now, the average water cooler uses between 65 and 140 gallons. So, I would like to ask us to try to work with the water district to see, and I know this has been discussed a little bit, to require, not allow new homes to go in with water coolers, that if they're going to have cooling, it has to be air conditioning, because you can't meet the 50 gallons a day that the governor has said we will do. If you have a water cooler that's using even a minimum of 65. So I'm just asking that we talk to the water district and see, because they have they believe, don't quote me on this, folks, but they believe there's grants available for people to get coolers on their homes, especially low-income people.
Well, the problem is if we do something like that, number one, Governor Brown is done, coming up very soon. Yay.
Yeah, but Newsom's going to replace. Isn't Newsom that's going to replace?
We don't know that. There is still an election. You know,
Yeah.
and so,
Right.
but I don't know. My house, we're blessed to have both, but it's also a burden because the electric bill is, I mean,
Gotcha.
a lot higher. And so I think mandating stuff like that, you have freedom of choice, and that's just like mandating every new construction having solar. Like,
that is mandated starting 2020.
I know, and that's what it's just we're continuing down this path. If they want to mandate it, that's one thing, but I'm not for us mandating that kind of stuff.
I want us to discuss it, because there's no way the water district is going to be able to deal with 50 gallons a day.
There's no way in the
Did Brown just mandate this, or is it?
No, it was signed. It was passed by the legislature and signed by Brown.
I don't. Was it passed by the legislator, or did he just do it?
Utter
He just did it. The legislature approved it, and he signed the bill.
I thought he just.
It was an AB.
Okay.
He signed it. Yeah.
There's some underlying reason pushing a mass exodus of California. There's the Mike, and we can talk about it and discuss that too. There's an underlying reason for this nonsense, and it's draconian. It is unbelievable. It's impossible. People cannot sustain. No, you can't. You cannot just say everybody goes to refrigerated cooling, which cost a fortune. We can't do it. There's going to be revolts. There's going to be riots. There will be massive repercussion to this, and as it should be. It is so far over the top. It's preposterous. I don't have words for it.
Actually, every home in my new subdivision has air conditioning, because air conditioning is so much more efficient now. It doesn't cost a lot more to run air conditioning than it does a swamp cooler.
How much? The bill has.
I don't know. I have solar, so I don't have electric.
I was going to say, because even my neighbor who said that claim that they had a new efficient AC, they ended up signing for one of those crazy solar programs because they found out it wasn't that efficient. I mean,
the fact is that it's the law. It has not gone into effect yet. I don't want our people to be hit beside the side of the head and understand that because we're in a drought, the water district is going to pay $10,000 a customer. I'm sorry, $10,000 a day. Not possible. It can't be done. But the fact remains, I don't want us to find out afterwards that, I'm sorry, you didn't do anything. That's the way it is. And short of getting rid of the
even if you get rid of the swamp cooler, though, that's still not enough.
You're still not cutting.
So you're going to tell people, sorry, you can only bathe once a week. That's going to be our next ordinance.
It's not going to work. It isn't
going to work. We're going to give grants for dry shampoo because
it's another
and deodorant.
Massive assault on personal rights, personal properties, personal budgets.
It's a massive
personal
assault
dignity,
by our legislature.
I realize it, Peggy, but Madam Mayor, something has to stop here. And it will. This is going to stop.
We all agree.
This is not going to be another deal like the water, where we're going to do. If you don't take care of it, we're going to take care of it for you. This business is going to stop. It's going to stop.
I don't see how.
We don't
Oh,
agree.
Mike, there will be a way. We're talking about
Vote
the
to divide the
villages
state.
lighting torches with Franken. We're getting into the Frankenstein village thing. When you start trying to pass laws like this, that's where we're headed.
It's not passed. It's been passed. Yeah.
Well, it's not. It ain't over.
Well, it isn't. No, of course
It
not.
ain't over.
Probably January 1st.
Okay, the last item I would like us.
It doesn't take effect for till a couple years.
Yes.
And
That's what
then it's like
time.
in 2 years, and then in 4 years it's this, and in 5 years it's this. So
All I want us to do is be aware of what the impact on us is going to be should that take place as it exists today. It's huge.
we're all gonna have to buzz our hair.
Yeah. Anyhow, the last item, about 6 or 8 months ago, we got a list of city-owned property. I would like us to look at it and see where we are with it. Obviously, we have been doing that, but I'd like to know, so is that property going to be sold? How do we do it? What do we deal with it?
You're not getting picked up, Peggy. You need to be closer to the mic.
What happened to triangle?
How?
There you go.
Sorry. Did anybody need to hear that again?
We're working our way through the list. I mean, when you talk about our long-range management plan, we have properties that are in the plan, primarily business park. Those are being offered for sale. We have one that we're working on right now with Hobbs and Carr.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll get rid of Desert Candles. We do have some other properties out there that we can bring back. But like I said, we're establishing the process because as we found out, there's a couple, depending upon what type of property it is and how we want to get rid of it, there's a process. So we're establishing the process, and you're seeing that tonight. Because there's certain process we have to go through to get rid of property. So we could bring it back maybe to infrastructure and let you take a look at it and see what properties that we want to get rid of. I know we have some properties out off of County Line Road that are potential wastewater facility properties.
That's right.
That obviously we're not going to get rid of anytime soon because we still haven't made that decision.
Right.
So, but yeah, we can bring that back to that committee and let them take a look.
Okay.
But I understand the direction from council. Start getting rid of what we need to get rid of, and that's what we've been doing.
Okay. I have nothing else. Anybody else have anything? No other agenda items. All right. Motion to adjourn. It's done. We've adjourned.
Hey, Jed, do I get dinner?
Where you get a new adventure every week.
You must think that I'm stupid. You must think that I'm a fool.